Two, new business, review of community survey results regarding future funding options following the expiration of Measure E, and consideration of potential Measure E replacement options, and direction regarding ballot measure structure and revenue strategy. Can we please have the staff report?
You may. Thank you. Good evening once again. This is the main event of the evening. I'm going to set the ground a little bit, and then I'm going to go through a brief PowerPoint. The primary goal of the PowerPoint is to sort of highlight some of the survey results. I hope everybody had a chance to read the staff report. It went into quite more detail. I also wanted to let everybody know that anything that staff could think of to attach to this staff report, we did. We tried to get as much information out there. We put stuff up on the website. We really, really are striving to get this information out to the residents because it's so critically important. In addition, at the end of the PowerPoint, you'll see a series of, I think it's 5 or 6 decision points that staff is requesting from the City Council. As a reminder, the timeline on this is very, very tight. We hope to, in fact, I have a pre-scheduled meeting with our city elections attorney for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I hope to be able to deliver those agreed upon parcel tax structure points and get him working on both the ballot question and the accompanying documents needed. That will be brought back to the City Council on July 28th for formal adoption and with the help of Janet, forwarded to the county no later than August 7th to ensure that it's on the November 3rd ballot. All right, here we go. As a reminder, this is not a scientific survey. It was never intended to be. I'll take the council and the community back to June 10th. That was following the unsuccessful passage of Measure PF. We had a packed house. We heard from a lot of people. One of the items on the agenda for consideration was to do a scientific poll. The city has done 3 of those in the last couple of years. And instead of spending the money for that, the concept was, and the direction to staff was to put out a survey to residents. That survey was June 10th. By June 18th, we had that survey out. A copy of the survey is attached in your staff report. We left that open until July 7th in an effort to reach as many residents as we can. In addition to all of our electronic forms of media, we also sent a postcard to every resident with a QR code. And in fact, that seemed to have worked. I think we saw an uptick of 150 or 200. What was it?
Say about 200.
200 from when that postcard hit. So yeah. All right. So we had a total of 598 responses. 580 were residents. Once we determined that you weren't a resident, the survey ended. Next slide, please. Give a little background, just as a reminder, if anybody doesn't know, and you'll see that 95% of the people know, 2018 Measure E was approved by voters in the city. It was approved at a 69% margin. That provided $5.1 million dedicated to funding our police department. It's widely discussed that at that time, it was known that the $5.1 million wasn't even enough at that time. It is scheduled to expire and will expire in June of 2027. That means we'll receive our last payments on that this fiscal year. I think probably February is when the second big bulk of those payments come in. Let's see. So June 10th, we discussed about the next step, and we put out this survey. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we have currently an operating deficit of $1.5 million. The budget was approved with an operating deficit of $1.7 million, but subsequent to that, the council provided direction to staff to lower the tree trimming budget from, I think it was $450,000 to $250,000. So we're using the number $1.5 million. I think we all know what's going on in driving costs, inflation, labor, and personnel costs are increasing. Our insurance premiums, as reported earlier, went up 30% this year. Many of those are related to our inability to properly trim our trees. And then, of course, the favorite topic is our pension obligations. Our current budget relies, that's okay. Move on. Everyone knows that. So we're pulling out all the stops. We're trying to get the word out as much as we can. There's been a lot of discussions. I've been here a little over 2.5 years, and as I reported at a community event, I've spent about 2 years working on trying to find a solution on our funding challenges. We've also gone out into the community. We were invited to attend a town hall hosted by Preserve PVE that several of us attended. We did an event at Lunada Bay, and Chief Ling and I decided to set up a tent one afternoon in front of the beach club, and that we probably connected with about 25 residents. We might have another pop-up event near the beach coming up soon. Maybe we'll do it at Rat Beach. Keep an eye on that. All right, next, please. All right, so the November ballot measure, November 3rd is the next election. It will require a 2/3 vote, supermajority 66.67%. Reminder, Measure E passed at about 69%. And as I said earlier, we have to get everything done into the county by August 7th. Let's see, this is important. The parcel tax needs to be dedicated to specific purposes. So we can't just say to close a funding gap. We can't say that we have $1.5 million operating deficit, so we'll write a parcel tax that'll help close that. It has to be dedicated to something. So, for example, police department or other definable items. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in this. All right, next. All right, so community awareness. I got it right. 95.5% of people say they're aware of Measure E expiration. All right. This is a really interesting one. George, did we have the slide with the how long the people lived in the city, or did that not make the? Did you skip it? No, maybe it dropped. I think it was something like a high majority of those taking the survey have lived in the city over 21 years. I found that an interesting number to think about. It means that our longer-term residents are very engaged and used to this cycle. It's also those that sometimes we think about as maybe they have a lower rate on their home or something. I don't know, but they were the ones taking the survey. I just found some interest in that. We can go to the next one. All right, so we modeled 3 numbers based on council recommendation. The numbers were based as a starting point on the current fiscal year's police budget of 8.7, then we went up to 9.7 and 10.7. If you look at it, the blue line represents what the support percentage was. There was 2 levels of support, strongly support and I think somewhat support. Those combined were 61.2% with an opposition of 27.9. The 9.7 dropped significantly in support and again raises, and so on and so forth as you go to the $10.7 million option. It's a little terrifying to look at that 61.2%, knowing we have to get to 66% to pass. Next slide, please. Here's another version of looking at it on another chart. Yeah, I don't think there's anything new to share on this one. Next slide. We then asked the question, if you could support one option, what would it be? And by a very, very slight margin, 10.7 million, down to 8.7, and then so on and so forth. You know, you can sit here and try to figure out what this means. One of the things that we did as we looked further into the survey is we noticed that a lot of the $10.7 million supporters also supported additional funds provided for pension obligations. So maybe that's how you can interpret it. Maybe you can say that Carrie and George wrote a bad question. I'm not sure, but that's what the numbers told us. Next slide. So then we asked the pension liabilities question. For those of you that don't know, that this is where Mayor Kemp's is much better than me, but I'll do my best to describe it. We did put information on the survey that people could click to. We include that as an attachment, but essentially, CalPERS, which is the staff's pension, has been in the news topic. They went through a huge reform several years ago. In fact, there's another reverse of those reforms working its way through the legislature that is going to be very problematic. But it has been reformed. But essentially, the city has a obligation, and it's underfunded by about $20 million. That requires us to make an additional payment, not additional, but a supplemental payment each year on top of what is paid into the pensions by the city and the staff. That has been rising dramatically. This year, it's $2 million. It has to do with the way CalPERS invests their funds. But that $2 million, I think the key point is that's general fund money. And as I always remind residents, general fund money is the most critical dollars that we can spend in a city because it's not restricted. We can use it on anything we want to use it on. And we are somewhat forced to use that to work on this pension. So that's why this question is out there. So you can see, based on the survey, 36%, 20, and 23%, 36 feel it's very important, 23% somewhat important, and so on from there. So I think one of the ideas is if we could somehow get this under control, it would free up that $2 million for other projects or other uses in the city. Lastly, I'll add that the pension challenge is not unique to PVE. It is something that most California cities, if not all, are dealing with on all the time. Okay, next slide. We asked about an annual inflation adjustment. Measure E did not have an annual inflation adjustment. And if you look back at how much inflation in the economy has moved and up and down throughout the year, you can see how that is just helped lead to, among other things, our operating deficit. As a reminder, the police department, since Measure E, I believe it's since Measure E, went through 2 rounds of cuts, layoffs, and combination of positions. As Chief Alinga likes to say, we have the same number of officers here than we did in like 1963. So one of the things that was very important to consider is an inflation adjustment. We modeled the number 2.5%. It had strong support, but then so did the opposition. There was also support for a lower cap. We'll come back to all of these. You'll see these numbers again when we get to our decision points. Next slide. One of the big topics surrounding the community and the PF discussion was a concern that money generated by a parcel tax will be used on major facility expansions or new buildings. So we thought we would ask the community where they're at with that. And, there's significant response asked that parcel tax money be restricted from being used on these types of projects. There's no doubt that this building and our garage and our police station and all these facilities need a significant investment. There's plenty of documentation out there, and we're definitely gonna have to find a solution for that. But as in terms of new buildings or major expansions, from my view, enough residents support no funds towards that from a parcel tax for the council to consider that. Next slide. All right. Residents told us that public safety is very important. They want to maintain the police staffing and emergency response. They want fiscal responsibility. Residents expect prudent financial management, continued cost control. They want transparency and affordability. The residents expressed concern about cumulative tax impacts, particularly for retirees and fixed income households. I think these are all great things. I'm glad to hear all of this, and I'll tell you, just in reading the survey and I've had a look at the transparency one, it really drove me to really widen sort of the attachments. I think we get lost as staff. We're in the moment, and we feel like we've done a good job of getting the information out there. I was at one community event, and somebody's like, "Why am I just hearing about this pension discussion?" And he said, "When have you discussed it?" And I said, I think it was March 14th. But we forget. I know that it was March 14th. Well, George reminded me it was March 14th, and I know that it's on our agenda, and then I was able to follow up with him and send him the link directly. But, we do forget. So I think it's important to double down our efforts on this while doing everything else that is falling in our laps. All right, so staff recommendations. I think I've gone over this. Next one, please. All right, you want to go back?
What was that?
Go back. Yeah, just kind of a summary of where we're at.
Okay.
Next. All right, so these are the 6 points that I'm staff is seeking direction from on the council. How would you like to set the funding amount based on what you've seen, the 8.7, 9.7, or 10.7?
Or any other.
Or a different number? Yep, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for getting to that. Do you want to include any additional pension funding? Would you like a cost of living escalator? New facilities restriction? Sunset duration? We modeled 6 years. Lots of reasons for that. We feel it's enough time to sort of take a breath and get out of this mode and look for other opportunities, other ways, look for, just continue sort of the progress that we've made in the last couple of years of rebuilding the staff team and really, our communications with the public have increased dramatically. That's enough time. It's also tied to the 2032 presidential election, which is generally where you want to, if you're forced to do another tax or extension, that's when you get the best numbers. And then accountability reporting, we'll go into a little bit more in a minute, but essentially, we didn't really model this, but I put this in here. The Measure E accountability reporting, which is on your dais, was, and I should have put the PF one, but I think I put some of it in the staff report, was really sort of the standard that you see, for many cities. For better or worse, the PF really took it to another level. So, it would be helpful from council, sort of a direction go. I think if any deal point, you could just say, make it tighter, and I could work with the election attorney to figure that out. The rest of them, obviously, I need a hard decision on. Let's go next. I think this is where we're at. Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn it back over to you in a second, Mayor Pro Tem. The next 5 slides kind of go into the different deal points with a little bit more information, and this is what we're looking for direction from the council. I suggest now that this would be a good time for questions and clarifications, and at which point I would suspect you'd want to take public comment, and then we can go into deliberations. So I'll turn back over to you for questions.
I don't think I have any questions.
I don't have questions at this point. I think the information was very thoroughly
Nice job.
Thank you.
put out there on the staff report and the follow-up ones. So thank you for doing that.
I have no questions right now.
Okay.
All right. Are you going to go into the deal points
no.
in greater detail? We'll go to public comments? Okay. All right. Well, I currently have two speakers on this item. We will start with Desiree Myers.
Good evening, everyone. I took the raw survey results from 580 residents, along with the 329 open-ended comments, and asked AI to analyze what the tax structure would be that has the strongest chance of gaining a 2/3 voter approval. Grok AI concluded the most likely structure would be an $8.7 million amount using a flat tax structure per dwelling unit, and even ADUs contributing. Residents repeatedly emphasized that every home consumes police services equally, so everyone should pay a fair, predictable share. Other key components that boosted approval chances include a sunset clause, keeping our local police department, but also explaining how the city will address future increased pension costs. Number 3, strict spending rules, parity to safety, significant dedicated funds for pension debt reductions, and urgent repairs to existing infrastructure only, with a clear prohibition on new city buildings and non-essential services. And number 4, strong accountability, an independent oversight committee with teeth and legally directed funds. Crucially, reforms are also needed and was mentioned throughout the comments as part of any package. The city already has a document of over 40 specific reforms accumulated from multiple sources that could save millions through operational improvements, shared services, and new non-tax revenues. The flat tax and serious reforms were very, very strong themes throughout, even though both were unprompted by survey questions. In short, residents are willing to support responsible funding, but they want a fair, flat tax paired with a real commitment to the city, from the city, to implement reforms and reduce long-term reliance on ever-increasing parcel taxes. Thank you.
Ms. Myers, I have a question for you. I had an opportunity to read the document that was compiled that contains the suggested opportunities for efficiency and reform. And by and large, I agreed with virtually all of them. I mean, many of them were, quite sensible suggestions. However, I think one of the things I was struck by is some of them have a very long potential timeline to implement, likely measured in years for some of them, before we would save $1 or receive a new dollar of revenue. One of the concerns that I have is that in residents that I've spoken to don't seem to be very realistic about that. Again, these are fairly informal conversations, but they tend to sort of say, well, can't you just increase business license taxes or, parking meters or this or that or whatever. I'm curious if you have any suggestions for the council and really for anyone who's ultimately going to be promoting whatever ballot measure is on the ballot in November. How would you communicate to residents that reality, I guess, right? I'm just very interested in how you'd pull that together for folks.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for asking, and thank you for reading them, Derek. People want to know that the city is moving forward and taking it seriously. You have an amazing group of brilliant people with time on their hands that want to serve the city, that can synthesize this information effectively. That would be your FAC, your Financial Advisory Committee, and your IAC. I've sat through the interviews for years. These are brilliant, wonderful people. I would hand them the list and ask if they could go through it, come up with a spreadsheet of all 40 items, one row per, and show what the timeline would be and the trade-off would be in value to the city. Some is for better decision-making. It's hard to, by changing your budget to be accrual instead of a cash basis, hard to put a number on that, but that's really effective for decision-making. Other has an actual cash value to it. So if they go through that and they say, okay, this one has a huge timeline, people want to know you're working on it. We should have started it years ago, but if we start it now and we have that money available 3-4 years from now, they want to hear that, because that shows planning ahead that in the end, we're going to try to wean back from solely using these parcel taxes to fund the city. There's other ways that we can do this, and we're all working together. And hearing that that's being analyzed in that way, communicated in that way, planned in that way, shows that everybody's at the table together working on it. And that's how I would do it. I do believe that this is something that the people on those committees would be really good at. I've spoken to some of them in person. They're brilliant.
Thank you, and I agree. I mean, we have some really smart people there, very great credentials, very great backgrounds. Thank you for that comment. I would simply ask you, as a very engaged member of our community, please help explain that reality as well to folks. I mean, I think it's great there's a lot of enthusiasm around some of these ideas. And I actually believe, in a sense, I'll say no idea is a bad idea, at least that in the first, round or two of discussion, right? I think we should have a open forum of ideas where we don't shoot ideas down, but we also have to be realistic that not all of the ideas will move quickly or necessarily be viable for various reasons. And so as we work through that as a community, I think it's just going to be really important to have voices like yours, kind of explaining that to members of the community. I assume you more or less agree with that concept. So.
I do. Coming up with the right tax. One comment I noticed, Carrie went through and brought forth the 6 components of your tax. I think after looking at what the residents have said in their responses, they're not looking at being restricted to those 6 things. For instance, a flat tax had a huge amount of people asking for it, and that wasn't one of the 6. So I hope you consider also the components that people responded to, which may not have been the 6 that you thought of.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Mark Sorian. And if there's any other speakers, please fill out a card.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, neighbors. I won't rehash what Mr. Kellerman went over. Really good job with that. I think one of the things that we need to think about going forward is how did we get in the unfunded liability hole? Because our unfunded liability interest payments are, as you illustrated, they exceed our structural deficit. Our structural deficit is gone if we didn't have that problem. I'd like to focus a little bit on once we get out of this hole, how do we stay out of that hole and not get back in it again? And one of the observations, and I didn't do it, my son's the finance guy, but he went and looked at how CalPERS tends to behave when they give the cities their standard payment schedule. And over the last, I forget, 5 or 6 years, CalPERS has told the cities somewhere between 15, 16, 14% of payroll. And then the cities get an invoice, if you will, 12 months later when the cost was really 22 or 23% of payroll. And I think that my hunch is that's probably a big reason that we find ourselves in that hole. So I really, really want to think about that a little bit as we budget for payroll increases with cost of living or taking on a new hire. I think that we need to budget accordingly based on our experience, not what CalPERS gives us, at the starting gate. As far as paying down the debt, my own personal view is probably the most practical thing to do with whatever parcel tax money we get is pay that debt down to about 95% of the unfunded liability, and then take the rest of the money that we know we're going to need, maybe a little extra, and put it in a 115 trust rather than risking overpaying CalPERS. CalPERS are lousy investors. They trail the indexes year after year. If we have it in a 115 and just average it into some boring index funds, we'll probably do better than CalPERS, and it's our discretion when we write the check. I think that would help a lot. So personally, I'm one of the 37% that supports getting the unfunded liability paid down as quickly as possible, because it just frees up money to do all the other stuff we know we need to do. I think as a sweetener to try to get whatever tax you guys designed, as a sweetener to get it to pass, I would suggest that once we tanked up CalPERS to the 95% and stashed away the rest of the money however we choose to, that we roll back the tax a little bit. That might give people a little more incentive to vote for it, because we do need 2/3. If you are considering an escalator versus a flat tax, and this isn't my idea, I stole it from somebody else, I would suggest a conservative escalator, because the city's revenues, they may not keep up with inflation, but the city's revenues go up as well. And so consider an inflator where you use the rate of inflation or the rate of however the COLA is on Social Security and subtract that from the percentage increase in the city's revenues. And that'll make the escalator a little smaller. It'll make it look a little more fair to people. So that if you do stick an escalator in there, that might be an appealing way to do it. And on the transparency side, there's a long list of infrastructure stuff, and some of it's very real, and probably some of it's a little fuzzy. And I think that we need to refine that list and get the priorities sorted out. And the messaging, perhaps, with the parcel tax is, rather than surprising people, at least acknowledge that somewhere in the future there might be another temporary tax to catch up with the infrastructure backlog. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comments on this item?
And on Zoom. Anybody on Zoom?
Anybody on Zoom? It looks like we might have one person on Zoom.
I see Blake's iPhone with his hand raised. And I believe Cindy has promoted Blake to a panelist. Blake, you can go ahead and speak right now, if you unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm driving back from work right now. First off, this Zoom thing is great. It really is. I feel like I'm able to engage, and I think we'll be able to get more people to engage through Zoom. One recommendation is on your agenda, don't just type in the URL, actually make it clickable. It's very difficult. You got to literally copy and paste it into a web browser to access the Zoom. And I think this is a great way to get people engaged. As for alternate revenue sources in the community, I really can't stress enough the importance of getting the concessions to pay. That'll go a long way to showing people that you're taking this seriously. The beach club I just joined, I paid the 26 grand, and happy to do it, but you need to raise the dues. You need to raise the dues, you got to raise the concession fee, and you need to do the same thing at the golf club. And I know those people that belong to those organizations, we have a lot of political power in this community, but you got to do it. You got to do it because it's only fair to the rest of the community that's not members of these clubs that you're getting a fair market for these assets. As for the escalator, I would not make it complicated. You'd be surprised how many people in this community don't know what CPI is. You can tie it to Social Security. That's something everyone understands. Make it easy. And if you're not going to do that, then just increase it by a nice round number like 3%. Don't do it 2.5%, just make it 3%. Everyone understands that with their rent, when they pay their rent, it goes up by 3%. That's the standard. And then one other thing I'd like to mention is in Malaga Cove, the parking lot by the beach club, that is not Class F under the PVHA map. It's not zoned. It's a street, and because it's in the coastal zone, it's also not open space. It's actually R1. I think that would be prime real estate to put a underground parking garage and do a small little hotel right there. And you should explore it. That would take years and years and years to do, but you should explore it. As for the parking meters and everything else, no more consultants, just do it. And a lot of the money we'll get won't be from the actual parking meter. It'll be from the fines we'll get from all the people that are parking illegally. Just do it. If you have a good idea like that, drop the consultants, just go with your gut and do it. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments either on Zoom or in person? All right.
I see none, Mayor Pro Tem.
What's that?
I see no other other hands raised.
Okay. All right. All right, well, in that case,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may
Yeah.
I make one additional
sure,
comment?
absolutely.
George, you ready? I just wanted to, in the staff report, we modeled different scenarios for complete transparency's sake. Other than the 8.7, nothing you see in here is a number that was given to me by anybody. These are numbers that, based on the survey, we put in there just to sort of model sort of how things play out. So to kind of walk everybody through it, if the parcel tax was at 8.7 million, we would provide to PD under one scenario, $7.7 million. We would reserve or require, should the council go in this direction, we modeled $1 million towards pensions. This would require another $1 million from the general fund to fund PD at the current level. And through all of that, there's additional general fund money available after closing the operating deficit of $1.1 million. You see on the right side, we played around with 9.7 and 1.5 and kind of show you. So when we get to deliberation, we have a live version of this that we hope works. And you can give George numbers to plug in to kind of see what ends at the bottom, the additional general fund. You know, that's really important. You know, I think that was one of the huge talking points in the last parcel tax election in sort of what was going to happen with the freed up money. Mm-hmm. You know, you can see that at the different levels, the freed up money is, you know, anywhere from $1 million to, you know, like I said, you can move it around however you want. You could get it to zero if you wanted. I think it's important to have some of that freed up money for things that we don't know are going to be coming up or more opportunities. One perfect example is there has been a lot of talk about actively pursuing grants. I completely agree, and I've been very successful in my career doing that, mainly because at my last job I had a little bit more free time. But there are firms out there that you can contract with to identify grants, write the grants, and as I said at a town hall meeting last week, the most important is administrate the grants. If you've ever had the pleasure of dealing with the administration of a federal grant, you'll understand what I mean. It is arduous at best, but they'll do that on a flat fee. You know, there are other things. There's no doubt that are based on the number of calls and inquiries I get usually on Monday mornings about tree trimming. We are woefully behind on that. I don't want to get in front of the council or the community. This was a big sticking point before, but I think it's really important to see what that additional money could be used for. Unforeseen things or sort of investments in some of the ideas that have been floating about and sort of the resources needed to, sorry, Mr. Gilman, I can't just go put parking meters up in the coastal zone, but I could definitely spend the next year or so negotiating with the Coastal Commission to do this, with hopefully the outcome being that we can do it and generate some revenue. But that takes time and money. And some of this money would be nice. At this point, we are working on very, 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 very tight margins. So want to be very transparent. And as the council talks about different money and how it flies, hopefully this widget that George invented will work. All right, I think that concludes my remarks.
I do have a question. So is that 1.1 reflecting the 200,000 in cuts of the tree trimming budget?
It does.
So it's really 900K to get it back to where we were
George, help me out here.
months ago.
No, I believe we modeled it. The 1.1 is inclusive of the 200,000 in cuts.
Yeah, we took it out.
They took it out.
Okay.
So if you want to get to the 450,
Okay.
They're taking, saying the deficit is
And the
1.5
450 wasn't
million
enough.
As opposed to 1.7 because they took out the 200.
Summary, Derek, you're right.
Sorry, added back the 200.
Okay, got it. So if,
if you wanted to get that back to 200, it would come out of the one. To
Right.
450, it would
to
come out of the
9.
1.1. You're
To
right. It would be at 9.
Okay.
You just said it a different way, Derek.
Understood. Okay. All right. All right.
I turn it back to you.
All right, well, I think it's time for us to discuss amongst ourselves what we'd like to actually do. Mayor Kemps, do you have any thoughts you'd like to start with from Hawaii?
You're gonna kick it to me to solve it from here, huh?
Yeah.
2,482 miles away, you got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow Desiree and Mark's comments, actually, because I'm surprisingly in sync with both of them, so we'll start with that. I also threw all this into 2 different AI engines, looked at what spit out, scratched my head, argued with it a couple times, said, no, you're not doing that, go do this. And so this is sort of where I landed. And we can I'll get into the efficiency stuff and the parking meters and the concessions. We'll get to that in the end. So where I landed was sort of similar to Carrie's chart. I don't think we can go above 8.7 as much as I think the city needs more money, and I think it is going to have to be dedicated to capital. But sort of Mark's comments about coming back with a capital plan and showing those one-time expenses and justifying that to the residents, that's all fantastic. And I think that's the probably the solution to the gap. So 8.7 $1 million towards pensions. You all know, if I could throw $3 million a year at pensions until I was 100% funded, and however long a time period, I would do that. But I think in the scenario of 8.7, I think 1 is fine. I love the idea of the FAC providing the oversight. The CalPERS statements come out once a year, but they're delayed 2 years. So you start throwing $1 million at it, you're not going to know for a couple of years how it starts to look. You get into the length of the measure. By the way, I think 6 is fine. I'd prefer 11, but 6 is fine, and you can maybe get to the 6 point, and to the point of evaluating what it does to the pension reduction. Can that potentially reduce a tax, leaving room for the capital? I don't know, but maybe, sure. Language, we've heard some public speakers in prior meetings talk about concerns about the way PF was written. I don't want to debate the language of PF versus the existing language of Measure E. So my solution would be to take the exact Measure E language, modify it as follows. 1, I would restrict the $1 million pension funding. I would, Mark made this point, I was going to make it anyway. I would, in that restriction, state that any overage, whether it's we can figure out whether it's 90 or 95%, as you approach fully funded, either you take that money and put it in a 115 trust because you're going to see the actuarial dips and valleys, valleys and peaks and valleys, not dips and valleys. And a 115 is fine for that. I never had an issue with not building new buildings with money that we don't have to not build new buildings anyways. So putting that in the measure is fine. I think we need to talk about this idea of a fixed cost and how it affects, the low-end house and potentially the senior that's in a low-end, smaller house as compared to, sort of larger residences, and whether it's, I'm flexible. Do we increase the base significantly and leave the cents alone? And George, I don't know if you can model that, but there's that. So I think I covered the questions, just to spit that out on the efficiencies, and I'll shut up in a minute. I would ask the FAC to modify the pension funding policy to align with the tax change. I loved the interaction between Derek and Desiree on the recommendation and the efficiencies. Then we need to go through every one of them. I'll give you one where there's a challenge. One of the suggestions was that we look at the funding for PV transit. Well, that's restricted Prop A funds. We can't use it anywhere but transportation. So that one's going to come off the table real fast. But because most people don't know that, great that it's in there and great that we can talk about it. I would fund the grant writing firm ASAP. I think we should just put an agenda item, call this a future agenda item request if you want, Gary. $100,000, tee up the grant writer, let's figure it out. If we get grants, we may not be able to match them right away. We may have to figure that out, I don't know. But getting that going and having that available to the community is a big step in the right direction. I think we should do it. What else? Taking a much deeper dive into the capital plan. Oscar did a wonderful job, an absolutely wonderful job, and gave that a huge start. I don't think we've spent enough time in that workshop or two sort of diving into the depths of that and figuring out, how that works relative to short-term needs versus long-term maintenance. What can be one-time money, what isn't. Let's get real honest with the folks about what we want to do with City Hall. And that's beyond the scope of this tax measure. But thinking back to the PF argument, just level with the folks. And I think we'll get support to fix the parking lot. I think we'll get support within the existing lines to fix the building, even if it's a lot of money. I think we will ultimately get support for that. I did hear a lot in talking to people. I did hear a lot of requests for non-tax revenue, people frustrated with the weddings on the cliffs. And it's not even so much generating large amounts of money. It's show us we're not paying the entire bill to be as welcoming as we'd like to be. Hopefully I said that properly. The weddings on the cliffs, sort of the start with the gazebo and what we did there, but requiring business licenses for what's going on the cliffs. People visiting and celebrating and taking photos at the fountain constantly. It's wonderful. We should be welcoming, but maybe if they're running businesses doing that, we should address it. Well, I'll leave the concessions discussion. Craig, I think you had some discussions with a couple of them, so I'll leave it at that. Those are generally my thoughts.
All right, that was a lot, but it was a good structure. Yeah, it's a good starting point. Anyone want to go next?
Yeah, weren't we gonna, I thought the city manager wanted us to go one at a time, or?
However you'd like. I think it would be helpful to bring up the PowerPoints. We're going to only see half of you now, Michael, or none of you. Let's take a quick second, if it's okay, to walk through the next couple of slides. I think it's important because there's some more additional information in there. When you're ready, George.
Okay.
All right, so this is the three numbers. This is what staff did in terms of how to model it. George, we based this on how Measure E was structured. We did sort of a percentage increase. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Those were a lot of meetings and discussions and numbers, but that's how we did it.
We followed the same ratio of the the base rate with the improvement rate for the on a square footage basis. So we tried to model out the same ratio.
Yeah. So, and I think that if you want to play around with different base rates and things, I think we have the ability to do that also in an Excel spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. So that's one. The next one, please. I just reminded that about 60% rated reducing voting pension liability is important. So the options for the council is dedicate a fixed annual dollar amount, or the other is a percentage of whatever it is could go towards it, and then obviously
those are going to result in almost the same result, with the only change being as square footage creeps.
Right. One piece that might change with that also is if there is an escalator, it would go up with the escalator. So that's why we included that as an option for consideration. Next one, please. Cost of living. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. We threw out 2.5. It got moderate support. When I wrote the staff report when we started the staff report, May was posted. The May LA, Anaheim, Long Beach CPI adjustment was 3.6. I think that's what's in the staff report. I looked again today and they posted the June and it's 3.3. So you can see how that fluctuates, right? We've heard a lot about Social Security and we looked that up today, and the 2026 Social Security is 2.8. And then there's a little line in this website I was on. It says, and they're projecting that 2027 could be as high as 3.7. So these are floating targets. What's It's interesting, Mark, not to,
When we would use the, what's the local one? The
Anaheim, LA, Anaheim, Long
LA,
Beach.
Anaheim, Ventura, or the LA, Long
Metro,
Beach,
yeah.
Anaheim, or there's an LA, Ventura.
And typically you pick a number, like I know that staff COLAs are attached to that. I think it's March with a cap of 3.
To what?
Annual staff COLAs are attached to the Anaheim, LA, Long Beach
The Anaheim, LA, Long Beach.
with a cap, right? So I think that we've shown that it was higher, but it capped at 3. So if it goes lower than 3, then that's what staff gets each year. And I just, where's Mark? I'm not an arguer, but to your point, you're right. It would be nice to tie it to as our revenue goes up. You have to remember that our expense goes up. Staff does, get raises and merit increases in COLA, and it's all part of retaining good staff. So love to talk to you more offline and learn more about your ideas. But that's important to bring into the conversation. Okay, next one, the building restriction. I think we've talked about that. It doesn't restrict facility-related, if you don't want to do that. Now, obviously, look, there's going to have to be a little bit of leeway in this. I don't know how to define major facility expansion, but I also know that things break here. And we wouldn't necessarily be using that fund. That's where that extra general fund that gets freed up would come from. Also, there's already money built into our budgets, but I think that would have to go through sort of whatever oversight committee structure is. Next, sunset and duration, 6 years. I think we talked about that. I think the last one is sort of the accountability. So anyways, I just wanted to go through those. There was a little bit more information that I thought was germane to the conversation. You showed, I've already forgotten, you showed that chart. Yeah, you sure did. So, okay, back to you.
All right, well, I'll throw some comments out there, I guess. So, I will say this. I was very concerned to see that we didn't even get to 66% at the lowest level of funding that we were considering. And I think that we have a real challenge and a real risk facing this city. One of the things that I think that a lot of people don't completely understand in this city, or maybe they do understand it, but they don't like it, is that this city was intentionally structured to not have commercial revenue. And I think a lot of people kind of know that at this point. They've either heard it as part of the recent campaigns or they always knew that. But I don't think they understand how incredibly rare that is, how utterly unusual it is. It basically is one of a couple of cities in the entire state that was built this way. There's Hidden Hills, there's Rolling Hills, there's Palos Verdes Estates, there's maybe one or two others. We're really, really unique in not having any industry, any hotels, and such a small, teeny tiny, handful of restaurants forming our entire commercial tax base. And the horrible thing about this is that it puts basically the entire burden of having a police department and having a fire department and having city attorney and having all the kind of core functions, roads and sewers and all the other things we pay for. It puts it on us, on the citizens of PVE. Now, there's a part of me that feels like we're all adults. We all chose to live here. We all could have read that in a pamphlet or a book or the deeds or any number of other things and figured that out. And, I hear an awful lot of complaining, and I understand why, because it affects my family too. But I also think part of what we all have to come to terms with as a community is that we have chosen to live here. And unless we want to embark on a complete transformation, or at least some sort of a transformation of our community's tax structure in terms of not having those commercial activities, we have to pay the cost, the realistic cost of running this city. Now, having said that, I think the other side of the argument, or the other kind of information we've gleaned in the last several weeks, is Measure PF was way too big. It wasn't defined as clearly in terms of some of his goals as it could have been. It wasn't communicated as clearly as it could have been. And so now we need something that meets in the middle. We need something that is realistic about the cost of running this city and how we can pay for it over at least the next 4, 5, 6 years. But we also need something that's clearly much smaller than PF and much more, has some sort of a snowball's chance of passing in light of the numbers that we've seen in our survey and in light of the election results. So that's a tough spot when we're at 61%. And I think one of the important things is it's going to require a coalition of people that disagreed with each other just a few weeks ago to come together and find some sort of common ground. Or we're in a lot of trouble as a community. And so to me, that's the starting point. The other thing that I think is worth repeating, and I've said it before, but it's worth repeating, is the council over the last roughly 8 years has already undertaken a lot of pretty significant fiscal cuts and reforms. That includes, staffing, headcount cuts, deferring various repairs and maintenance and less than critically necessary things. It's not to say that we couldn't always do better. And, we did actually recently renegotiate our weed abatement contract so that it was less expensive and it covered more ground. So, I agree with those, including Des, who have said we can always do better and we have to look for those opportunities. But I also think that it's important for residents to know that a lot has already been done. This is not the city of Los Angeles. We're not wasting billions on homeless programs or God knows what. This is a fiscally conservative city that by and large has been run as a fiscally conservative city. Not to say that we can't do more, but let's give credit where credit is due for what has already been done. I think that we are clearly looking at something in the ballpark of 8 to 9 million at most. I think that anything more than that is very unlikely to pass. I think that I would support personally about $1 million toward pensions. Based on the numbers that I saw from the GovInvest presentation, the pension problem, because of the reforms in 2012, will eventually solve itself if CalPERS can actually return something resembling normal market returns. Now, traditionally, they usually haven't. They've come close sometimes. So I think it's probably unrealistic to assume they're going to be that good. But because of the reforms in 2012, the causes of the pension problem are largely in the past. And we are healing, but we're healing incredibly slowly. If we add $1 million a year, the projections that I've seen, and I'm not a math wizard on this stuff, but from what I've seen, we accelerate that very significantly to the point that we are 90% funded, in the 2030s, roughly. It's not that far away. It's 2026. So, I think $1 million a year is a sensible number that fits within the projections that we're dealing with here. I think 6 years is the right time frame for this. I agree with Measure E as the starting language. I think Mayor Kemp's is right about that. It's probably the least controversial starting point. I don't think a true fixed cost approach is the right way to do this. And the reason for that is I think it significantly increases the cost of our smallest homes and actually probably reduces the costs of our largest homes. And I think that if we're trying to build a 66% coalition, we have more smaller homes that are going to have real trouble paying, call it a doubling, or more than a doubling, than very large homes that are truly going to be unwilling or unable to pay $900 more, $1,000 more. I think that's just the truth of the numbers and the reality of how you get to a 66% coalition. And it's a pretty small number. With all due respect to people living in 6 to 10,000 square foot homes, it's a pretty small number. I don't think any people in homes like that are truly struggling over $900. So I think a fixed cost approach is the wrong way to do it. I think something closer to Measure E with a base and then a per square footage approach is the right way. You know, I like grant writers. I've been talking about grant writers for years. If we can put that on a future agenda item, as the mayor suggested, I think that's a great idea. I don't know that we need to include it in the actual measure. One thing I'm aware of is if we do go, let's just say we go with 8.7 and $1 million towards pensions, as we've seen modeled, it will free up a small, call it under $1 million amount of money to the general fund. Personally, I have seen how this city is gasping for air. I've seen that we literally can't put a security gate on the building where we need it. I've seen that we can't replace servers in our basement that are 15 plus years old. You know, there's some very basic blocking and tackling that we are not doing because we are dead broke. I don't think $1 million a year in this community, and considering where we're starting from and how far behind we are on many of those critical projects, is an unreasonable ask. Now, there might be people out there who disagree with that, and I think we have to think about that. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But that's kind of where I am. You know, the concessions, hotels, parking meters, all these kinds of things. You know, the concessions have long-term contracts in place. Parking meters, by and large, require coastal commission approval. Hotels are highly controversial and require approval. I mean, those are, as I said, I don't think there's any idea that's not worth talking about. But I think the controversy, the time, the legal fees, all of that kind of stuff, those are future conversations that shouldn't muddy up the water here.
No, this is quick.
Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from.
Would you like to go?
Nope.
Okay. All right, then I'll go. I am going to step back a little bit, and I've actually prepared a statement, knowing that I would be going after Mayor Kemps and Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro with a lot of ground covered already. But for the record, I thought I'd put this in there, so I appreciate you allowing me to do this before I get into the details. But first of all, I want to thank the staff and others who have put in an incredible amount of time and effort in dealing with the parcel tax, the surveys, making your time available, including Chief Alinga, of getting out in front of the residents and answering as many questions as you can and you could. So it's acknowledged. We see you, and we appreciate everything that you've done. It's a lot of work, and it's really not in your job description, generally, in my opinion. I also want to thank our residents for their feedback, both on Measure PF as well as the recent survey. We are fortunate to live in a community with both passionate and insightful neighbors. There has been so much information that has come. It's like drinking through with a fire hose. A lot of good ideas. A lot of good ideas should be contemplated as well. As I said when I was sworn in, it seems like a decade ago, but it was less than 2 years ago. I said, no one is smarter than all of us. So no one person is smarter than the rest of us. So we can come together and solve this as a community. A lot of us have weighed in on the parcel tax discussion, and our role on council, I'll speak for myself, is to choose a path for the majority of the residents. I am I'm very concerned that we're going to hit the 66 2/3 threshold. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a coalition of all of us in the community to come together and do what we can. As many of you know, we put hours and hours of time together in identifying what we thought we needed to run the city of Palos Verdes Estates, and that number was $17,500,000. And I don't want us to leave tonight forgetting that that's what we need to run our city, and the fact that we're talking about something that's half of that or less than half of that is concerning if there is a major issue that confronts our city while we're trying to dig out of the problem. So that reality does not go away. My goal is to land on a solution that can give all of us a path forward and that will motivate us to rally around our police and fire and city staff. So hopefully we can come together as a city. It's a little cliche, but let's not perfect be the enemy of the good. It's going to take all of us to come together. This isn't perfect, and I think Derek mentioned it earlier, not everybody's going to get what they want, but we should be able to get what we need to get through this part of our fiscal, I'll call it a crisis. It's a special place, so let's join together and do that. So to be clear, my compromise tonight is in no way includes everything I believe we need to fully fund our city for the long term. And that's mentioned by Mayor Kemps and Derek as well. I think you all know that. Some of these reforms and opportunities will take years to bear fruit. So, we got to recognize that. We have an infrastructure need that's beyond what we can afford. And I know we talked about putting that capital list together, getting it more robust, putting numbers to it, maybe figuring out a way to pay for it, as Mark had mentioned as well. It's absolutely critical. As far as pensions are concerned, let me just finish this, I'm getting into the pensions. I will fully embrace where we land tonight. And I will work with our neighbors to pass a parcel tax that will help fund the police and keep them in our community. But again, there are more needs in our city than we can afford right now. So it's unfortunate. As far as the pension's concerned, I see that there's an opportunity to claw back some of the general fund if we pay down the pension. There are others that believe that the pension debt it's just that, it's debt. And right now, we don't have the opportunity to go out to a bank or any other source to get any debt for our city, as I understand it. So CalPERS is the only one that's lending us money right now, albeit it's expensive. So I do believe we should pay it down, but not everybody believes that. I think you may know that. It's really difficult for me to come down to 8.7, but I think given the fact that we all need to get to 66 2/3, I'm willing to go there, along with a capital plan down the road. I am also willing to pay down the pensions and then claw back that money, in spite of the fact that there's another viewpoint on holding on to the debt and using that money if there were ever a near-term emergency, because that money goes into CalPERS and it's gone. There's nothing we can do with it. I do believe the FAC oversight is a great idea. I think we should move forward with that. 6 years, I think our residents can get their arms around that one easier. no need to worry about buildings, nor have we ever even included buildings. And how that ended up out on next door was very unfortunate, and it was unfair, and it wasn't true. So we have no intention to build buildings. As far as the COLA, 2.5 is less than 3, and trying to get to 66 2/3, I'll take the lower one on that. And I appreciate an opportunity to go higher to 3, but I think 2.5, trying to get where we're trying to get is important. The 115 trust, to the extent we free up money down the line, I'm okay with that as well. With respect to the concessions, it's important to know the residents' perspective that all the initiation dues go directly into capital improvement funds, both at the beach club as well as the golf club. So 100% of those initiation fees go towards improving the buildings and the structures that the city owns. So they're doing their part in making our facilities better through those initiation fees. As a personal member of Palos Verdes Golf Club, my capital improvement monthly dues went up, well, I guess for the year went from $100 to $250 a year just for capital improvement alone. Is that monthly or is it, I think it's monthly. But the point there is we're, as members, putting money into the capital that will benefit the city down the road. So I think we'll lose a contingent of many, many voters from the golf course if we layer on another fee right now in addition to the parcel tax. So we'll gain some on one end and then we'll lose them on the other end. So I'm not willing to take that risk at this point in time. What else? I think that's pretty much it from this list that I have in front of me. And thank you for letting me read that statement in. That's it for now.
Thank you. Who's next?
You want to go, Victoria?
No, go ahead. Still thinking. I'm listening. I have my listening ears on tonight.
All right, I agree with a lot of the things that have already been said tonight, but there's some things I will take exception to. I think our residents need to come to the realization that we've been living beyond our means for a number of years. We've had deficits, in other words, expenditures exceeding revenues for the last 4 or 5 years that are continuing to grow and we're not replenishing them. That started with Measure D when that failed. We borrowed money out of the reserves. We never paid it back. And we've continued to take money out of the reserves in order to satisfy operational needs. Now, historically, the community had revenues that exceeded expenditures, and we were able to transfer monies to these capital reserve funds in order to repair and maintain our assets, whether that be the infrastructure, the building we're sitting in, the roadways, whatever we have in our community. We haven't been able to put one dime transfers into these capital programs for the last 4 or 5 years because we're spending more than we're bringing in. When I look at the deficit for the current year, which is what, $1.5 million, if I remember correctly, after we cut back to minimal tree trimming. And if I were to remove the $5.1 million of Measure E and replace it with 8.7, I'll use that as the proxy right now, that generates approximately $2 million more than we had yesterday, and we couldn't make our budget work yesterday. To further exacerbate this challenge from my perspective is mandating $1 million or some number being transferred to excess pension liabilities. I fully agree that we need to pay down the pension liabilities. But we've got so many other risks that are imminent in our community that we may need cash for on an immediate basis. And I would, if we were to go with a measure that had a provision for paying down pensions, I think that ought to be more optional, to be viewed on an annual basis. Let the FAC look at that, whether they've got the wherewithal, because if we have a catastrophe, a sewer backup, or something that goes wrong in our city, we won't have the cash. And I'm very concerned about that. One of the things that in our budget, at a deficit of, or $1.5 million, we have no provisions in there whatsoever to replace the police cars as they're being utilized on a daily basis, or the equipment that our public works people are working with, whether the computers and the systems and the servers that are antiquated and falling apart. We've got so many challenges and risks. That's one of the reasons we ended up cutting back on our tree trimming. We had to find ways of getting money out of there. This is increasing the risk to our community. You heard earlier tonight that our insurance premiums are up 30%. And a lot of it has to do with a lack of maintenance of some of our areas. We've got weed abatement that we've improved on that, and we've done a great job with these goats and so forth, but it isn't to the standard that we would all like it to be. The landscaping, some people think we may spend too much money on it. Other people think we need to spend more money on it. My bottom line to the residents tonight, that if we're going to pass a number of a tax measure that will hopefully achieve a 2/3 majority, they're going to be giving up services in addition to paying more in revenue. And that's where I have a real challenge, that we have not done our job of identifying where these cuts are going to come from. I don't know how we could get back to maintaining the trees properly or maintaining the brush removal. We're going to have labor contracts with our police officers and our staff coming up shortly, and they're all going to be inflationary pressures on them. We're going to continue to see our vendors increase because they got to keep up with inflation. It's no different than our own home. The city is faced with reality of operating in today's society. And we've got to understand that it costs money. So if I looked at the difference between 8.7 million and a 10.7 million, I did a little quick math, and it comes down to less than $30 a month per household. How many of you spend that money monthly at Starbucks or some other
Avocado toast.
Avocados or
Oh my
a
God,
cocktail?
you're such a 40-year-old.
Well, I'm sorry, but
44.
I go out and it's $25 for a cocktail today before a tip. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And I recognize that the majority of our residents are concerned about cost and maintaining an efficient marketplace here. I believe we have done that. And it was, Mr. Lazaro said earlier, we've cut costs over the last 7-8 years. And one of the areas that I'll raise my hand on, because I voted for it, was cutting back on communications to our residents. That was a huge, huge mistake, because we didn't communicate and educate our residents as to what we were dealing with. We were trying to be penny wise and pound foolish. It was stupid. We finally have got some communication expertise that has helped us regain some of that communication with our residents. But we've done some things to try to cut costs, and some of it's been positive, some of it's been negative. So as I look at the other attributes of a cost of living increase, I definitely believe we need a cost of living increase. I think a flat 3% is a very simplistic way of doing it, not to exceed. I'm fine with, Otherwise, we're going to fall further and further behind as we did with Measure E. The duration, with 6 years, I think that's realistic because this is going to have to get revisited. All we're doing is kicking the can down the road. We are not done with the financial challenges of the community with whatever is passed in November, assuming it gets passed. What am I missing?
I think that's it. You hit the escalator.
The FAC,
I'm sorry?
the FAC, what's your
Well,
thoughts on it?
I applaud
The
the
oversight,
FAC,
yeah.
and I wish we would take more advantage of the FAC, and I'm so disappointed that we haven't utilized that group in the past because they've got the financial wisdom and expertise that could provide a great deal of help to this community. But the community has to be willing to accept the answers. That's the challenge. It's not going to be a pretty answer that they're going to come back with, because either you've got to raise the revenue or you got to cut expenses. Or we've got to let the streets go to potholes and our officers drive around in Model T Fords or Car 54.
Right.
So, yes, I do want to see a measure get passed because we've got to Band-Aid the situation going forward. I think we need to go for as much as we feel that we can get the community to support, but I think at the same time, and I'm going to turn to our communications consultant sitting out here, that we need to communicate what is going to be the impact, even though we raised this tax to some level. The other thing I missed on was the allocation of how it gets spread, or the formula. I do not believe in a flat tax. I think that's regressive. I don't think that's fair to the smaller homes and a lot of the older homes. I think we need to use a formula similar to what was used in Measure E, with a base and a per square foot calculation. But I'm very disappointed in our community in the fact that they're unwilling to address reality, and it's an unbelievable challenge that we are a unique community, as Derek said earlier, like very few others in the state of California, but we have to, all the financial burden is on our shoulders. There's no one else to blame but ourselves.
I'll make a very quick comment on his comment, and then I'll pass it to you. I think that something else that's really important to understand is one of our biggest costs in this city is the labor, the people, right? The city staff, the police officers.
And vendors.
And vendors, but ultimately that's generally people as well. We have
Like 70% of the, almost 70%
Right.
of the budget is salary and benefits of people. We don't buy a lot of stuff.
right.
No.
That's
just
right.
have people.
There's no gold-plated toilets in the back room.
No, there are not.
And the thing about people is they have to live close enough to actually come to work. And I think that part of what I'm so disappointed in about where we are in this whole conversation is if you look at the last 10 years, the inflation in the LA metro area is about 43%. That means if you were making $100,000 10 years ago, you need to be making about $143,000 today to afford the same things. And obviously, that affects our residents. It affects most significantly, people who are on fixed income. But it also affects our police officers. It affects our other city staff. And at the end of the day, we are in a marketplace for labor. And the most disappointing conversations that I've had are with residents who don't seem to either believe that or they don't want to believe that. And they just kind of keep saying like, well, we don't have to pay our police the same that Torrance pays. We don't have to pay the same, and we don't, by the way. We pay all of our city staff significantly less money for the same positions than almost any other city that's comparable in Southern California. And we've shown slides that show this over the last several months, several times. The slides are available on our city website. But we don't pay competitive wages. We have a $30,000, $35,000 signing bonus for $30,000.
Tiered one, top is 30.
The top tier for our signing bonus for PV Estates police officers is $30,000. Torrance pays $100,000. Beverly Hills just gave their police officers massive raises. It is a marketplace for labor, and I'm not saying that we should go and run and match Beverly Hills every single time they have an increase, or that we should run and match Torrance because they're at 100 and we're at 30. But we have to be realistic. If we want our own police department, if we want the top tier services, we have to pay something resembling the market rate. And we have to keep up with inflation. That's just math. I mean, this guy's a CPA and all sorts of forensic accounting certifications and stuff. I don't know anything about it. I'm not the math guy here, but I can do the basic calculations. And so that's, the two biggest worries that I have is that we are going to continue to struggle to pay for the minimum staffing levels that we need. And the second big concern I have is the deferred maintenance on all the infrastructure. And, I agree with the critics who say, look, $100 million, you don't really need $100 million. You don't really need it tomorrow. That's obvious, right? There's clearly ways to pick that number apart and come to some sort of a compromise and say some of this can be deferred much longer. But we clearly need significant tens of millions to do the basic seismic maintenance that this parking garage needs, that this building needs, that, it's really concerning. And we are going to have to come back. And we are going to have to solve this problem once and for all. In the meantime, we are putting a tourniquet on a bullet wound that is actively bleeding. That is exactly what this is to my mind. This is a tourniquet on a bullet wound. We live to fight another day.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We may
Okay.
fight another day, yes.
Okay, so I actually so I liked everybody's comments. I liked hearing everybody's perspective, because I've had a lot of thoughts on this over the 10 years that I've been a servant in this city. So I'm going to start, and I have lots of things that I've got going here, but, I'm going to start with, and I said this at a recent meeting, that we have this bad habit of hiring consultants to advise us, and then we don't take their advice. So I pulled out the results of the two. So the survey we did was a non-scientific, but the two we did before, because you said that was coming on the heels of the two that we had before that, which were scientific polls conducted by professional polling companies. Okay, so I pulled out the last two. So kind of different numbers about different scenarios, blah blah blah, and it talked about. People want they want to preserve as you said, that, we want to preserve the police department. We want to preserve the response times, the responsiveness, the proactiveness. People want that. Okay, great. So it said, I'm looking at my notes kind of from, I don't know when this was from, maybe a year ago, but it says people like services. They don't like buildings. Hold on, stick with me here for a second when I nobody throw any rocks or anything, but, and they don't like the pensions. So hold that thought. But it talked about, so as we marched along, and then when the Citizens Initiative group kind of, came out, they talked about letting that group pursue the number that solves our problems over the long haul. And maybe dialing it back a little bit from what that number really was, which was kind of your point. There was a bigger number, the Citizens Initiative dialed it back a little bit, and that would have solved a lot of these problems going out 12 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever the sunset was on that. And then it says, if that fails, you've got to come back and you have to drop the dollar amount to the minimum amount we need to get by with plus a little buffer. Shorter sunset, so I think I think we're all realizing the 2032 is the best we're going to do, which is a shame because really in 2 years from now, you're going to have to open up the thing. It actually said to drop the escalator.
Not have it at all.
So we can talk about that. But it did say drop the escalator. I'm looking at my notes from the last two things. Okay, so those were the advice of people that we hired to advise us. Okay, so I guess kind of working through the list, I think that we haven't had any discussion of a number lower than 8.7, so I guess for argument's sake, we'll say that the lowest number is 8.7. I would argue maybe there's a lower number out there, but nobody's raised that, so I'm probably the only one who thinks that, so that's okay. Here's where I am on the pension. So I went back and I watched that March 24th meeting, not the 14th, and you were very close. And I rewatched that meeting because it was such a good presentation. There was so much information. I wanted to make sure that I was remembering it in my head. But I want to remind you guys. So because it is, and that consultant talked many times about that the CalPERS, there's nothing, when they make their numbers and they don't make their number, it's not linear, it's lumpy, it's all, it's peaks and valleys and it's all over the place. So it is intended to be something of a self-correcting system. So remember, if we do nothing, now while it hurts our cash flow in the short run, of course, it self-corrects. We get to 90% funded by 2034, 6 years from now. Wait, is that right? 8 years. Sorry, 8. Yeah. So, right, if we do nothing, it self-corrects to 90. Our stated goal, our policy says, our pension funding policy says we want our plans to be 90%. 2034, self-corrects if we do nothing. If we put in 1.3 million every year, and CalPERS makes all their numbers in all of those years, which, again, it's lumpy. It's not linear. The consultant said that over and over again. Instead of 2034, we get to 90% in 2030. We save 4 years. If CalPERS has any missteps in there, then it'll be 2032. We save 2 years. So we're forking over a lot of cash that could be used for services for residents to something that may or may not pan out. I absolutely, back in Measure E days, said, hey, we need the thing that covers the operations, pays for the police department, pays for our infrastructure, and deals with our pension. That's what Measure PF was, and people didn't want to pay for that. And that's okay. That's their option. That's what that was. So for me, it's hard to, so that 1.3 million additional got us those incremental improvements in 90% funding. So now you're not even talking about 1.3, you're talking about 1 million. So you're not even hitting the number that was going to get us 2 years ahead of schedule, maybe 4 years ahead of schedule. So I question the wisdom of asking people to vote to tax themselves for services. I think David was maybe making this point a little bit, for services, and then to take $1 million. The pension's like having a big, huge credit card bill in your household, right? And if you have extra cash, then you want to make extra payments to your credit card bill. But if you don't even have enough cash to pay your rent, then you can't be paying down the credit card bill. And that's kind of how I view. So I'm kind of hearing maybe I'm by myself on that, but I think it's worth saying. Because the thing that hit me between the eyes that I don't even think I necessarily grasped as I was reading all the staff reports and studying everything is the slide. Can you, George, go to the slide that talks about, it's like, oh, if it's 8.7 million or 9.7 million and what goes to the police department and what goes to pension, what goes to other stuff. Because what hit me is we're going to have a tax. We're saying that this year's budget for the police department's $8.7 million, so let's have a tax to fund the police department. Except you're not going to fund the police department. You're going to fund 7.7 of the 8.7, take $1 million and send it to pensions, and here we are again with an underfunded police department. Does anyone else see that?
Yeah.
Oh,
You're not wrong.
I'm like, well,
you're not wrong.
So, if the thing we hated about get my letters wrong, E, of course, as I somewhat famously said, the $5 million tax to pay for the $7 million police department did not pencil out for me. This doesn't, it doesn't pencil out for me. It just, if we want a tax to fund the police department, then fund the police department, unless what staff is saying is that they're going to cut $1 million off the police department budget. Not hearing that. I don't know how we do that. Right? You'd have to not fill positions that are open or, some crazy thing. So that's, I'm sure, not the intent. I don't even know how we do that. I think the expected for June, the fiscal year that just ended 2 weeks ago, I think we're expecting to come in 8.3 million, I think. So, there's how you're going to cut. So you can't cut. So as if that wasn't enough fun to go back and rewatch that whole meeting. Then I went back and I'm looking at, basic services. Never mind when you talk about fixing water intrusion in the parking lot. That's not even a basic service. That's an extra service. Basic service. Streets, sewers, storm drains. Okay, streets, as a reminder, 8.8 million to bring everything up to snuff, and then 2.3 million a year thereafter. Now, there is some reserved money for streets, so that's probably not as difficult a nut as these others, but, even if you took 8.8 million and you said, okay, we'll do that over 3 years, so call it 9 million, 3 million a year. Okay, don't have that. The sewer master plan, $500,000 a year for the first 5 years, and then $600,000 a year each year for the next 20. So let's just the first 5 years, getting done what has to be done. Okay, don't have that. Storm drain master plan, 3.4 million for, again, that must be done now. We can take 2 or 3 years to get it done. So 1.1 million. I'm really good at the math, you guys. 1.1 million. Okay, so so that's, never mind the streets, just the sewers and the storm drains. What did I just say? 500,000 and 1.1, so $1.5 million, $1.6 million. So
We don't have it.
well, we have it if we don't divert $1 million to the pension, to CalPERS, that may or may not produce the result we're looking for.
That's why it should be optional in my mind.
So one of the things, I'm so sorry, one of the things we've done in the past, back in the surplus years, when we had surpluses, we used to take a third, so if we had, just say, 1 year, I remember that we had, let's say, $1.5 million surplus in the budget surplus. And we put 500,000 toward pension, 500,000 toward in the CIP infrastructure fund, and 500,000 in I'll call it open space. That could be it could be tree trimming, it could be landscape maintenance, it's open space management. Would we think about something like that where we're, if you guys all say you want to put the money, obviously I'll support what the group wants to do, but I think this is a mistake, and I don't think it delivers services to residents for extra taxes paid.
Victoria, let me chime in.
Please.
So if I remember the one slide from the most recent survey, I think 38% of the people that responded said that they wanted pension. So if we need to get to 66 2/3, and we're trying to get a coalition of our residents that have weighed in loudly, by the way. I'm not saying it's the right thing financially, but it's a Band-Aid. Derek called it a tourniquet. I don't think we're going to get near 66 2/3 unless we move forward with the pension.
Okay, so that's an interesting point, because if you look at the survey results, just me and how my brain works. Residents were asked about the importance of reducing the city's unfunded pension liabilities in the future funding strategy. It didn't say in a tax right now. And if somebody says, do you think it's important that we pay off our long-term debt? Who's going to answer that? No. I mean, yes, of course it's important to pay off our long-term debt. But the thing that was interesting in the staff report was that so that was the overall response, but of the people who supported the $10.7 million option when they could only pick one option, 59 of those said it was very important to fund the pension. But in the $8.7 million group, only 29% said it was very important. So again, my statistical mind, that has, when you do, I forget what they call it like, I don't know, analyzing there you go, cross-tab analysis, there you go. So the people, so when you look at how did different groups, so when you look at the whole group, the whole 600, whatever it was, and you come up with numbers, but then you dig a little deeper and then you say, well, wait a minute, where are those responses coming from? So I would say the people who again, how my brain interprets that is the people who are in the 8.7, like begrudgingly, okay, I'll support 8.7, don't support pension. That was how I read this cross-tab.
So
I don't know.
I'll say this. I have never considered the pension pay down to be the most important issue. And, a lot of my training and day job is around risk management, either part of my career as a lawyer or cybersecurity, data centers, and things like that. And one of the things that I do in my day job is I look at risk, and there's the magnitude of the risk or the impact and the probability, right? And you create a sort of matrix and you say, the high magnitude impact stuff with high probability is what you attack first. Mm-hmm. And pension debt isn't that, right? I mean, this building falling down or the parking structure falling down, low probability, very high magnitude. The servers failing, high impact, relatively high probability.
Oh, wait, 3 hours ago, for example.
Some of the stormwater stuff that could impact our city. Probably the biggest one is fire weed abatement. And if we don't put enough money toward fire weed abatement, or for that matter, tree trimming,
we have a
and
risk.
you get a tree that kills somebody,
Sure.
then pensions suddenly look pretty unimportant, right? Especially if they're self-extinguishing over 8 years, 10 years, pick a number, right? Now, having said that, and I've believed that for forever, as long as I've ever, the first time I heard about pensions when I was a planning commissioner roughly 10 years ago, I thought, well, yeah, sure, of course, as you said.
Of course, who would say no?
Of course, we all want to pay
course.
off our credit
Right.
card debt, so to speak,
Right.
but it's not the first thing you do when there's a fire in your backyard. And now having said that, I do think that there's a group of people in this community who are very loud and very impassioned, who believe that paying off pensions is a moral imperative, a fiscal imperative, whatever you want to call it. It is their hot button issue. And so there's two axes that we have to align on. There's what we believe is most important and how we build a 66% coalition to keep the city running. And it's a bad place to be because we're caught between realities and building coalitions and to some extent guessing about how.
Okay, well, that's a fair point. So that's a fair point. So we've got a pension funding policy that says we will send the additional discretionary payment. We will send additional payments of $250,000 a year, plus, help me out, David, 30% of surplus budgets. I'd have to pull it up, but it's a percentage of any surplus.
That's what it says. That doesn't mean you have to do it.
Correct, and it's a policy. It's not so we can, right. So when we started running deficit budgets, we said, well, and actually in those years, I said, well, you should still send the 250 because at least it helps a little. But what if we say that number is 500,000 plus a discretionary element, to David's point, because then that way, if there is somehow any discretionary money at the end of the budget year, then you could say, okay, fine, but then maybe that's where you say, all right, then anything after that goes half to pension, half to infrastructure, capital improvement fund. And then
Why not leave it alone? Just leave it at that 250 and whatever the formula is.
I think that the No on PF coalition, of which the pension coalition is a big part of that, are adamant that we as a council didn't solve this problem when it was a lot lower of a number. They don't believe, I'm just speaking for what I've talked to them.
Never a lower number.
Well, it wasn't always 20 million, it was less than that. We weren't always paying 2 million, we were at one point paying less than that. When we had, other money, but that's neither here nor there. PF failed, the coalition is relatively strong, and logically, I agree with you. But from a coalition perspective, we have to add pension into that.
Yeah, but I might just throw out another argument to that is, again, we know the survey was not a scientific survey, number one, but there's a number of people in this community that don't have pensions. They're adamant against pensions and funding these pensions that they think they're right or wrong or put in place aggressively. And I think it could backfire. I think that's a risk that we have to look at.
You guys hear me?
Consultants have told us it will backfire, right? I mean, ironically, and to your point is, should we listen to our consultants? They've said, never use the word pensions. It's a bad word that always backfires.
Yep.
Now the weird thing about our community, though, is we have a very, very active group of people who have specifically told us that their biggest issue is paying down pensions. So,
Okay, well, but they also said, actually, one of the speakers said how demonstrating how you're going to address the pension issue over the long haul, and then they said urgent repairs only. And I think we're saying, I just listed the urgent repairs. It's $2 million. So.
Can I jump in for a second?
Well, hold on, let me finish my sentence, please. So I think, let's put a pension number in there, but $1 million, if we're gonna, if a 8.7, let's see, 8.7 frees up 1.9 million in the general fund, and you're going to take more than half of that and send it somewhere where that may or may not solve the problem. Okay, well, let's, even I will say, because I also looked at all of our discretionary payments, and again, that consultant, the GovInvest guy, the hugest, biggest impact of your CalPERS issue is investment performance. So the reason why we're paying $2 million a year is because of the 14% loss in 2022 and how long it takes 7 years to cycle that through. So, but even in like a year when we just sent the 250, I mean, it did help a little. It helped a little. So let's do the 500. Let's do 500. I mean,
That's
we
an
have
interesting
so many other services that residents need. I mean, they're going to feel better about the toilets flushing and things going where they're supposed to go? Or are they going to feel better about having a lower pension payment 2 years earlier than projected? I mean, sorry. I think we got to come down on that $1 million number.
Mayor
I would
Combs?
advocate that we leave the pension policy as it is at 250 and let it be discretionary, let the FAC weigh in as to whether additional monies can be paid on an annual basis based upon performance and risk profile.
I would say
Well, these
that,
guys make a good point that says that there is a segment of the community that does want to see more specific progress on that issue. Oh, Michael, sound like you're muted.
Oh.
No, sorry, I'm saying something to people in the background here.
Sorry.
I'll jump in when you're ready.
again, I'm just going to say, we can't afford to lose 1% below 67%. So that is the biggest risk from a voting perspective right now. And if we want to secure the police, I would move forward with 1 million. Michael?
I understand the CalPERS subject at a very, very deep level. So I'm not even going to bother with the debate. I think the political reality, Craig hits on it. Do we need more money for infrastructure? Yes, we do. And we need to come back with an option for that. If we were going to come back with an option for that, we might as well just do 10.7, keep the million or $1.3 million or whatever it is. Because yes, there are more funds that are needed. I identified that when I first spoke. The reality is, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it plainly, in addition to the political support that we need from the group that feels very strongly about this, the thought that CalPERS is going to hit their projections and that they're going to produce the results that they tell you that they're going to produce. I've been watching for 8 years, and I have no confidence that over the next 8, they're going to do any better projecting this than they have in the first 8. So if we're going to be working on the next tax measure saying, oh, well, the pension debt's up to 30 million now, we're going to trust them and, we're going to pay an extra $250,000. Sorry, BS. You can slap me remotely. It's just not going to happen, number one. Number two, you're going to get an anti-measure campaign by the group that fought PF. Let's just talk political realities. You're going to get an anti-this measure campaign that's going to say they're kicking the can down the road. They're not covering the issue. They're not fully funding the police department. I understand the other piece of that argument. And this isn't enough to start conservative, from the fiscal conservative point of view. This is not going to fund and reduce debt and return what is now over $2 million a year, growing to $2.4 million in the projection I've seen as estimated payments. They want those driven down, and if they're not going to be driven down, we're going to see no signs from the same people that fought PF, but for a different reason. So, and we're not going to, there's no shot we're going to get 66%. So I would, the counter to this is, if you feel like it's more important that we designate some money to capital right now, that if you feel like you need to fund, the minimal infrastructure, I'm not talking about buildings and parking lots. If you're going to solve for storm drains, sewers, whatever else now, well, hell, go 9-7 and put $1 million in each bucket. But this idea that we're going to just, carry it as debt because we're going to carry it towards our future and there's no other funding or financing mechanism. So we're going to act like, apologies to those that are going to be insulted, we're going to act like the school district and let it just grow out of control. Sorry, that's not what I'm here for. So if you need to fund the rest, increase the measure. Fight to get to 66%. Get support from the group that fought against PF. Listen and learn the lesson. And by the way, I can't see it. Maybe you guys can see it. The slide that indicates the support for pensions wasn't 30 whatever percent. It was the sum of everything that was not negative. It's 60%.
Michael, I think that you've spoken to the No on PF Coalition folks more than anybody else. Is there a number that you're aware of that would meet their expectations and at least prevent there being a no campaign, if not an active endorsement from them?
I think this will go a long way. I don't think this is as high as they would like.
$1 million.
Again, I think everybody's giving something up here.
You mean $1 million?
Yeah, I don't think $1 million does it for them, but I'm going to hope that they won't oppose it because it's in there. But to go down we're going to support our policy, pay $250, pray for the rest, and hope that a future city council addresses and pays down debt. Oh God, here come the no signs.
To Councilmember Lozzi's point, is there some other inflection point, whether that's 500,000 or 750, or, she made the point, we're essentially putting more money into the pension funding than any other potential category or categories. Is there some split the baby number, like 750, that they could still support, do you think? Or do you think $1 million is their hard line?
No, I mean, I heard some of their comments. There's some people in that group that would go to 3, 4, 5 million per year. So no, I think this is
AI analysis also said demonstrate that you're making progress. I mean, 500, I like 750. I mean, I like 500 better, but yeah.
How does 9 million sound?
Yeah, the other thing that's hard is because PERS over time does hit their numbers, but you need a long time horizon. And I am also concerned about something with a, so what are we're only talking about a 6-year time horizon. Yeah, 20, 30, 6-year time horizon. So on a 6-year time horizon, that 6-year time horizon is not a good CalPERS time horizon.
One of the other concerns I have is that we keep throwing out 8.7 for the police budget, but again, we don't have the funding in there for repair and replacement of the vehicles and the assets, and that's another $200,000-300,000. So what the ongoing number for the police department is something greater than 8.7.
Well, they're going to have the same pressure on new cars as we do on new sewers and new storm drains. Everybody's going to feel the pain.
There's also the aspect, and I don't know what it'll net out, but the talk about reforms and efficiencies and revenue sources are all part of this. And it's not that we're just going to sit here and do nothing, but is there an opportunity to be a little better in the expense line and or find some revenue that can offset some of this? So we also
sound
need
like
to,
we haven't been sitting here for 8 years doing that.
we need to continue to do it.
Of course we'll continue to do it, but you make it sound like we have not been sitting here for 8 years
There's more
already
pressure
doing
going
that.
up on the expenses
Holy cow.
because of the
Exactly.
trees, the weeds, the.
I think that's the truth. I think that, yes, we have to cut, and yes, we can cut. There's always places to cut. But for
People.
every dollar we cut, we're going to
Cut a person.
have inflation. Well, it's inflation is a big part of it, right? It's how much does gas cost now? How much do tires cost? Police radios, bullets. I mean, we buy, to your point, I mean, it's mostly people, but we do buy stuff too. And all of it is inflating and the salaries are inflating.
But if it doesn't
Because
pass,
they're outsourced
well, if it
people.
doesn't pass, what are we cutting? We're
Yeah,
cutting
we're cutting everything.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, we're cutting everything if it doesn't pass, and people need to understand that.
But Dave is
Let's
onto
do it.
something.
Oh.
We've oriented ourselves around these 8.7, 9.7, 10.7 numbers largely because 8.7 is the police budget. But we could pick a different number. We could do 8.5. We could do 9. In fact, I actually think one of the problems with PF was that PF tried to take the police budget and the fire budget, merge them together, and then orient around that number, which, there were valid reasons to try to anchor it to something, right? And it was less than the 17.5, so I think they thought they were being responsible by not asking for the extreme maximum, and they were at least anchoring it to something rational. But, we don't have to anchor it to 8.7 or 9.7, we can say we want 9 and we'll put $1 million into pensions and $1 million into infrastructure and other needs, contingencies and so forth as they arise. You know, the higher we go though, the problem is technically 8.7 doesn't pass. If we take that survey literally, we fail at 8.7.
Well, we have some work to do.
Maybe we go to
at
8.
7.
I mean, you know, maybe we
Well,
go to 8.5.
I think that I mean, it's a special tax. I think that, and I was the one who said, hey, let's put this Measure E language on everybody's desk because I think in the end we'll probably write it the same way, I would guess. But I think that, you know, we fund the police department, and that's the 8.7. And then, you know, the question becomes, okay, well, that frees up a little money in the general fund. What are you going to do with that? That was the downfall of PF, I think, is
It
that
was freed up a
because it
lot
was
of
like,
money,
okay, great,
yeah.
here's, you know, we're going to pay for police and fire, great. And I was like, well, wait a minute, what are you going to do with all this other money? And we didn't connect the dots well enough because it is so clear what we have to spend all the money on. So that's on us, I guess, or committee or whatever. But no, I think I think 8.7 is the highest. I would say it's got to be lower if we're going to go lower, and not like Measure E didn't fully fund the police department, right? It came in at a number lower so that
But it
there was
passed.
never any question
And it didn't pass by a lot.
where it was going, right?
Right.
Because that was like, okay, it's gonna contribute to the budget. We're saying, okay, Measure E didn't fully fund the police department. Let's go with something that fully funds the police department. Then I think the question becomes the escalator, and
Well, I would argue that 8.7 will not fund the police department on an ongoing basis because of, it is missing the replacement. of
Well,
the
but
base.
well, they're gonna have
there's
to
some
absorb their vehicle
contingency.
budget in
Yeah,
their
and
budget.
there's some contingency.
And if you're gonna
on
put in,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Not to mention the contract negotiations.
if you take let's say worst case scenario, you do 8.7, you take $1 million, there's still a little bit of money there for police cars and stuff like that. Now, it goes very, very fast. I mean, we're one tree branch hitting a house, you know, or one other incident, let's say, away from not, you know, from being broke, but you know, essentially insolvent. But you know, short of something like that happening, technically at 8.7, you live for 6 years, you live to fight another day.
yeah. What, do you have that slide that tells you the 6 things we have to decide? I think we're we're kind of now starting. Do
getting
you have
there.
that one? I think we're ready to do that, right? But can I talk about the escalator a little bit?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and found in my notes, drop the escalator, but, well, I will give everyone a little bit of little history lesson, a little Measure D history lesson, is that nobody understands CPI adjustment with an X% cap. I remember during Measure D, everyone went nuts to say, oh my gosh, they're just always going to increase it by the cap. And you're like, no, that's not what it was. And so we do, and it was in the staff report somewhere that said it has to say whichever is lower in big capital letters, you know, CPI or X. I mean.
What if we tie it to Social Security?
Well, I was going to say, I don't think, probably doesn't matter which index, but what I was going to say is, what do you guys think with something with such a short timeline, a 6-year timeline?
Just eat it.
What do we think about no escalator? Okay, so then
I mean,
I would say, because we were told to drop the 3%. Is that what PF
People
had?
hate escalators, they hate pensions, they hate buildings. That's what our consultant told us. They hate escalators.
So I would
they hate
say,
pensions,
let's
they hate buildings. You're onto something.
then let's do
I don't
two.
always agree with you, but you're onto something, and
Let's do then the LA, what's, I would match it to the one that we pay our employees by, that we adjust our employees by, LA, Anaheim, Long
Metro.
Beach, CPI, not to exceed, and I would go 2%. I think that we're I think the 3% on the PF was aggressive.
We've never seen 2% in the last 5 years.
Can I Can I make a couple comments on that, just to help it along? At 2.5%, the first year growth would be approximately $217,000. Just going to 3%, it only goes up to 261.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
We're splitting pennies, but
$43,000.
No, I'm saying it should go down to 2.
I understand. I haven't done the math on 2%, but I'm just saying that to the Mayor Pro Tem says it doesn't move a lot, but I think it's important. Well,
we're splitting
the most
pennies,
important thing
but
is to
it's
pass.
a perception
But it's the
thing.
psychological, it is the perception.
We're not dealing with rational actors. I'm just going to say it.
Well,
So let's go to the other side of the equation, just for fun. In the 6th year, that $8.7 million tax would be $1.389 million more.
If you did 3%.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah. Because inflation is real. I mean, that's the problem, right? Is if we don't do it, then to Dave's point, we really do start to fall behind on things like new cop cars and bullets and radios.
And
and
salaries
services.
and
Well, salaries.
vendors and everything else.
Salaries and benefits, yeah. I think 3%'s a mistake.
We learned
could
our
get
lesson
behind
with Measure E,
2.5.
and it was a failure.
Right.
2.5.
The problem
Let's start with, hold on. Let's start with this. I agree that 3% is a mistake. The question is, how low do we go and what do we measure it on?
I would measure it against Social Security personally, because I think it's close enough to the metro, and it's probably closer to the hearts and minds of the voters that matter here. So I'd say if we're going to have an inflator, and I can see arguments against having an inflator, but if we're going to have an inflator, I'd probably say,
And are you saying Social Security not to exceed X? Because
the
I just
lower
pulled it up.
of, the
Social
lower of
Security is a
social.
funky number. Yeah, that's a funky little.
It is.
It goes, going back, it's
an actually
2.8.
real number.
It's not real, but
I'd go
if
the
you say the
CPI.
lower
I'd
of
go the
Social
local
Security or 2%, it's
I'd go-
it's going to be 2% every time,
Well,
basically.
actually, not right now. It's like at 1 point, it's Social Security, it's like
It's-
1.8.
So the local one is at CPI-U? Is that what that one is?
Yes.
Yes?
I mean, we could do that one too.
I just like,
know,
you have to be able to open a newspaper and see what it is.
Right.
Yes, I still get a newspaper.
2.5 CPI-U.
Okay.
2.5.
I don't understand what Craig's suggesting.
The lower of either CPI or 2.5%, which in the current, I mean, it depends. It depends if we have a war over oil.
Well, it's.
There's a lot of
And do
macroeconomic factors.
I don't know if we have to do this. Do we have to
Yeah.
attach it to a month, or is there an annual CPI?
Typically, you attach it to a month.
I think you attach it like
then
March
because
of
you get
blah, blah, blah.
you get 12 readings a year.
Right.
Yeah.
So March 2.5, or max of 2.5 or lower. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, look, the Social Security one, which doesn't sound like there's interest, it gives an annual, and it was 2.8. So again,
That's more convoluted.
I understand.
I think it is, too.
I don't disagree.
Why are we going to confuse people?
With?
It's simpler to just pick a number. I mean, if we look back, I mean, it's a 6-year measure. We've gone through a high inflation period. It's dropped. Let's skip the Iran war and the current gas prices. Pause on that for a minute. Once we're through that, and it'll have an end. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in a 6-year period, is inflation going to go to 14%? Probably not, right?
I agree. Simple.
2%, 2.5.
2.5.
Well, if you're just going to pick a number and not tie it to an index, then you got to go 2%, because then people just think you're just.
I agree with
Number.
Victoria. I think.
And because that's fine with me because it's a 6-year period. Maybe just go.
Yeah. So
And because the guidances go easy, maybe it's just 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, we got one of 6 done. That's 2%.
We're getting there.
Well, we got the
Gary.
6 years.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what I'm
I think we're in
hearing.
agreement on the
We
6
got
years,
6
right?
years,
Right,
yeah.
the 2032, we ended up with.
8.7? Didn't we agree on that already, or no?
We've agreed on the 8.7.
8.7.
Sure.
Yes?
8.7.
and how do
Think
we,
about the buildings, I'm like, sure, there's not going to be any extra money to build the buildings. Go ahead and put it in there. There's no money, so
Sure.
go ahead.
You might as well add it to pass it.
yeah, that's fine. I have
What
no-
were the other ones?
yeah.
That's 4, right? Oh, pension. What's the other one other than pension?
FAC?
On the new buildings, I would describe it as no new buildings paid for with this money and no new square footage to any existing facility. It's a very simple way,
That's interesting.
right?
But there won't be any money for it anyway, so
There
whatever.
won't be any money for it anyway, but, because,
So no construction.
well, it's not no construction.
No, not no construction, because
New square
So
footage.
what was, how
and
did you
it's no
phrase
new
it in the
buildings,
thing?
Right?
As I say, ask for perspective on whether future.
Let me
Well,
find,
oh,
let me
come
find,
back.
let me find the,
Wait, can we see that slide in actual?
well, you
print?
want the survey question, I assume?
Yeah, I wanted
Yeah.
a question.
Because
Let me get that for you.
I don't love the word expansion. I think this had the word expansion. And the reason I don't like the word expansion is I don't know how you define expansion. To me, expansion,
Well, that's why I would, can we just leave it,
means-
new city buildings?
it means additional square footage, but someone else could define expansion differently, potentially.
So why don't you just put,
So I'd
Yeah,
say,
but-
the reality, the reality is there's no point to the debate.
that is true.
Just take what's in the thing. Because there's no, I mean, if you're going to expand a facility, you're not going to do it with $3 million or $2 million.
That's fine. It's not, I agree, it's not really.
Well,
debatable, But,
if somebody, again, it is about what, people's perceptions are. And if people perceive that or facility expansion project is wiggle room, then they'll
That's why I'm saying
drive a
include
hole
it.
through it. Wait, can't we just say no new city buildings, period?
well, a new city building is actually a narrower definition. I think Michael's advocating for
Can
a
I-
broader definition.
Yeah,
I
Carrie?
think the answer might be in sort of the annual, or however, the accountability reporting, right? We have to show whatever group how the dollars were spent. There's no doubt that if, wherever it lands, if it's 8.7, that's all that money is going to go to police department.
Right.
If we don't include pensions, if we do, whatever that's left over is going to go directly to the police department. We can create that nexus back to the police department on how they spend. I think the idea was don't take this money, don't carve it out to spend on buildings where people's heads were. And it was also, the intent was also to, kind of to Councilmember Quinn's point, was we never intended to do this anyways, but it's important to reaffirm that. So I think I can work with legal to write language that requires the money to go directly to PD or wherever else is written into the language.
So there's also in here the
No,
annex.
no, sorry, you didn't say that right. So
Okay.
and I'm not being critical, but it's important, I think it's important at this juncture to be very precise. So I think we're saying that the money from this measure cannot be used for new buildings. I think we all agree on that. And it cannot be used to expand existing buildings. The only question I have is the better way to describe that second part to simply say, or for expansion of buildings or facilities?
Yeah, why don't you just,
Or do we want to say no new square footage? I could go either way. I'm just saying technically no new square footage is even more kind of precise. But I wouldn't go in the direction you just said. 'cause
Wherever the
I
council
think-
pleases.
I think that makes it
Sure.
overly broad. No new buildings, no new expansion, just to keep it aligned with what we have. That's fine with me. Okay.
no new buildings or expansion of existing buildings.
Right.
Correct. Got it.
Okay. What were the other items, Carrie?
Where's the second?
The funding ratio. Base versus per square foot and how much.
Oh,
Yeah, well, so
right.
what's the split of the
Flat
six?
or-
Okay, see, amount,
yeah.
the pension, cost of living.
Could we pull up the you said you have a
facility
Excel. Could we
replace,
pull that up and play with
sunset,
it?
New facilities restriction, okay, so we got that.
Yeah.
Accountability, pension, and formula.
So on accountability, in Measure E, that section says, 5-member citizen committee comprised of members appointed by the city council must annually review and audit expenditures of revenues derived from the law enforcement services, special tax. Results must be included in the city's annual audit and reviewed by city council at a publicly noticed meeting. So if you want to change that to the finance advisory committee, we can do that. But I mean, I think that covers what has to happen. Is there something else that has to happen in that scenario?
Recommend changing it to the FAC.
I would
Yep,
agree.
same.
Yeah, I think that's,
We don't need another.
But is it something other than results must be included in the annual audit and reviewed by the city council at a publicly noticed meeting? I mean, was there anything else you were trying to capture in that item?
Direction of, I mean,
There's also an unexpended revenue chapter that I would put in there too.
yeah, I think that does it. You change it to the FAC instead of the 5-member committee, and it wouldn't be called the Law Enforcement Services Special Tax, probably, or maybe it would be.
Or whatever
I
it's
don't
gonna
know.
end up
Whatever
getting
it'll
called,
be
right?
called, right?
So 5-member, let's see, so, yeah, just say,
Yeah,
it still says appointed by the city council.
right.
So, for what it's worth, look, you know what, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
No, say no, say what you have to say.
For what it's worth, I put the Measure E kind of accountability reporting and the Measure PF in AI and asked which one's sort of more restrictive. I referenced this in the staff report. Basically said that PF retained citizen oversight, but added substantially more explicit reporting, auditing, public disclosure, and enforcement requirements from the language contained in Measure E. If I remember going back as to what it pumped out, it said that sort of the Measure E was the traditional and typical ones that city's been doing for years, and PF is kind of, I don't want to put words in AI's mouth, but if I remember correctly, sort of a new, stricter version to go to. So again, hearing what I've heard in some of the community conversations is there might be an opportunity to put some stricter language in here. You know, the Measure E is fine and has worked fine. I mean, the truth is, it's hard not to spend 5.1 million.
Well,
It's
Measure
not
E,
enough.
the accountability was irrelevant because you were.
You already spent
You're
it.
putting $5 million towards a $7 million
That's
police
right.
department. There was
That's
no
right.
question you were going to spend it all on the police department.
So you know, I don't know. You know, one suggestion would be I can work with our legal to kind of create a hybrid. I can also take direction from the council. I felt it was
Bring back what you
important.
think, if you think we should be more restrictive.
I think one of the criticisms of the Measure E accountability, ironically,
E or
is
PF?
sorry, PF, I'm sorry, thank you. I'm a little jet lagged. It talks about if the funding isn't spent on the police department, it sort of, you know,
Called back.
deletes it, basically, right? You know, in a sense, not exactly one-to-one relevant here. But
Let me help you on that if I may, because I think
Yeah.
I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
That's separate from the accountability requirements.
Okay.
I was envisioning, and I think I've heard enough from the council to not put that stronger, you know, language, just to leave it as Measure E was written, where it wouldn't necessarily, you know, funding would not just go away. It was a little bit broader, I think.
And personally, I think it should if we get rid of our police department, but that's just me.
Right.
Look, I think you're going to get broad consensus across the community that replacing Measure E makes sense to them, and they want to retain the police. So if you can say, guess what? It's the identical measure with these couple changes. We've got a pension carve-out that you asked for. We've got a limit on the construction of new buildings that you were concerned about under the resident measure. Those are the things you asked us to add. We did that. Other than that, it's identical. And we want the FAC to review this because A, they've got to look at the pension pay downs and the analysis, how that works. And B, we don't need another committee. We've already got 5 people that are part of a Brown Act committee that the city council's appointed for this purpose, and we need to more effectively utilize them. That's it, we're done.
That's a really good point. So if we go back to that little chart with the, here's what happens if you raise 8.7 and you get $1 million, could we pull that up real fast? So I think what Mayor Kemp's is getting at is if we raise 8.7, then technically it is all consumed by the police department.
There's $1.5 million of the UAL that's currently consumed by the police budget.
It's,
That's part of the 7.7.
No.
no,
So there's no way you're not going to fund the police department. It's the same thing as Measure E.
right, but isn't the police budget 8.7 million, give or
Yeah,
take?
no, so
right?
you're saying you're only going to fund 7.7 of the police department and send
Well-
$1 million to PERS.
Oh, that's true.
Right now, we provide $3.6 million from the
Right.
general fund
Right.
to the police department. Under the scenario on the screen right now, we would be providing $1 million from the general
Yeah.
fund. for
So
the
it's
police
not
department.
exactly the same as Measure E in the sense that it's funding 7.7 to the police and then let's say 1
million
million
to PERS.
to PERS. So it's a little different, but I guess that's the carve out.
But the language,
Yeah, but the rest of the language
Yeah,
could be the same.
that's right.
Yeah. I would support keeping this and then changing it to that Phase C based on that comment.
It means keeping Measure E's language, but then change it to the FAC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That keeps it simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay?
I mean, I guess if you and Jim have suggestions on other I
Yeah.
don't know what other oversight there would be other than
No, I
having
mean-
having it audited and having it reviewed.
It's pretty standard language a lot of these measures use.
Yeah, so
and
let's
I
just
think
see,
that's
if you
what
have,
Measure
if you have
E is.
other language
Yeah.
that beefs that up.
You're open to suggestion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, if there's something brilliant, go for it. Yeah. Okay, what are the other
I
items
think
to
we're down
decide?
to the pension amount and the formula.
Yeah. Can we pull up the formula chart? We'll save the best for last, the pension amount.
George,
Which formula chart?
that is where to direct the money chart.
Yeah.
There was that other
The
one where we
formula
could
one, yeah.
play with the
I
different.
think I saw it a second ago. You guys had it up. We've lost our audience. The only people left
We
are
have
the
a couple
people
diehards in the
who
front
have to
row.
be here. Or either getting paid for it or
I didn't even realize everybody left. Bye, everyone.
they just couldn't take it anymore.
Hopefully you're watching from home.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so as a reminder to the council, we took the Measure E ratios
Yeah,
and excluded them out to get to the various numbers.
right. And the base amount has gone up. The square footage amount has gone up. The base amount has gone up by about $240. It's not
Just a curious, I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but just a wild question for the math. What if you made the whole change to the measure in the base amount and you left the improvement amount identical to Measure E?
So the improvement amount, I think, for Measure E was 23 cents, is that
20
right?
cents.
20 cents? Okay, sorry. So let's try
Terry,
that.
What do you have? Oh,
Yeah.
That's where George gets to cook right now.
What's he cooking, Carrie?
Cooking up some numbers. Now, this is the fun part.
Yeah, we'd have to play around with the
342 right
base amount. But if you're retaining the improvement around at 20 cents,
I mean, the single-family homes is most of the square footage, so try changing that to, 600
543.
or 700?
that only gets you at 645. You're probably gonna have to go to 750.
Yeah.
No, I don't think
Still.
you can get there.
You don't quite get there.
Well, here's the thing, because
Yeah.
at 342,
Mhm.
it can't double, and it certainly can't be more than double, because then you
Right.
have the same issue.
The
with
little
PF, where
houses
somebody
just
sa-
blow
Well, just
up.
where
Yeah,
somebody says, oh my
right.
God, you're going to double my tax?
Right,
It's gonna
They
be
psychologically cannot handle
right.
that.
The base amount would probably have to exceed $1,000 in order to maintain the improvement amount at 20 cents.
Fortunately, Councilmember McGowan has a really big house, and he's willing to spend a higher amount per square footage, per square foot.
George, if you undo those changes, let's model what a
Thanks,
worst.
David.
Yeah,
Don't mention it.
let's model what a worst case scenario would look like. So, just undo the 20 cents. Yeah. So if you have a 10,000 square foot house, so you're paying 586 plus,
3,400.
yeah.
So I can calculate it out right here too on an individual basis.
Okay, so yeah, if you had a 10,000 square foot house, your worst case scenario, more or less, you're at $4,000. And then just change the numbers to measure E, so 242 and 20.
342.
Is it 340? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, 340. I'm really getting tired, but,
Oops, sorry.
Oh, 200,000, holy cow.
Send them the bill, that'll help the police department a lot.
so it's the difference between 2,300 to 4,000.
4,000.
Yeah. So it doesn't quite double, but we're talking about a 10,000 square foot house versus, doubling more or less. Is it worse to double an 1,800?
Should be going up 59%.
Is it worse to double an 1,800 square foot house or a 10,000 square foot house? I would argue it's worse to double the 1,800 square foot house.
What
big
if
your
we
house?
go back to whatever
It's bigger than 1,800, but it's a lot closer to that than 10,000. But
just go back to the 342, which is the current base. Is that the current
yeah,
base?
342. Yeah.
And escalate it for the inflation from, while Measure E has been in place. What does that grow to?
It's about
Good point.
34%.
You gotta,
So
Yep.
That's gonna require
Okay, I'm trying to back.
You're right.
You were the
need to
whiz
think
kid
about
on
that.
the
It's
Excel.
458, give or take. So we're a little bit over that.
What I'm suggesting is just increase the base by effectively the inflationary difference between when we did Measure E and this one, and then put the rest of it into the square foot.
It should be 458 and about 41 cents.
Call it 460
41
then.
cents?
460 is around.
Yeah, try 460 and 41.
Yeah. That's a sensible thing. At least we can explain that.
There's logic behind it.
Say it again.
460.
460
See what the spreadsheet says at 460 and
plus 41?
41.
No, it should be 40. 41's going to screw with people's heads. It does. It's all right, it does. So, average house, 3,500.
said 41 cents?
It's already
over.
Oh, no, you're right.
Oh.
Sorry, it's not.
You're only at 8 million.
Plus 460.
40 cents will go over, though.
Like
It's
that,
too
it's less
high.
Did we say 40 or 41?
I think it's too high. It's too high.
Yeah, it's too high.
It's
Does
like
460 does that get us
right,
there?
36 or 38.
Does 460 and 40 get us there?
It's
it's more.
less. It's
Which-
less, yeah.
Which amount?
Yeah, it's got to drop from that. Sorry,
38,
wrong.
It's pretty close.
pretty close.
Yeah.
So Steph can get the exact numbers, but do you want to set it for the?
Just fill down. There you go.
Basically, that's basically it right there.
Call it, maybe it's, or what if we go to 40, 40 cents, that'll be higher. But
46 and.
450 and 39.
39?
Yeah, try it. Try
Try 39.
39?
Now, we just made it slightly more expensive for bigger homes. We're going in the opposite direction of a flat tax. But I guess
Isn't that what you wanted?
the justification is for the smaller homes,
At
we're
eight-
tracking inflation.
It's at 8.8.
What did we say, a median home is 2,400?
Drop the base amount to 450.
About 450 and 40.
That's right about there. Pretty good.
No, I think that's all you need right there. That's pretty close.
Okay.
449?
I mean, 450 is
jeez.
a number people can understand.
99 cents?
Yeah.
I think you
Get the
just
8-7
explained it,
round
it's just
number.
inflationary
Yeah.
from
It's
X to Y.
within $10 of inflation, basically, something like that.
What's the base, 450?
I would give discretion to staff to double check these numbers and if they have to adjust it by $10 in one direction or
Fair enough.
another, but
So the ideal one is
450 and
450
39,
and 39.
yeah.
And any difference goes against Lazaro's house.
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
One last thing, guys.
I'll go 8.7 and $1 million towards pension
I don't
for the
want to-
coalition. Otherwise, it won't pass.
Same here.
I can't agree with that, but go ahead.
Is there a number you could agree to, Dave?
Probably not. Not a fixed number, no.
How about you?
Let me think. Well, I'm thinking about what, well, what I'm thinking is 750. And kind of part of the reason I'm thinking that too, just lower number and then other money for, obviously then we have for things that services for people. But is there a psychological benefit to that number being less than $1 million because of somebody says, what, $1 million to pensions?
I mean, initially, they wanted, what, 2.3 million, right? And, we're coming down to $1 million. So we're coming pretty far down.
Okay, so you're you guys are kowtowing to a very specific group of residents, and you're saying it in a way that supposes that they are in some way some
Representative.
majority and.
Well, I think if you're arguing that we're going to go,
Not.
I think if you're arguing that we're going to go to 2.4 million, you might be right.
I think even at $1 million, you're adding more risk to this community than it deserves and needs to have right now. Keep it flexible.
You can do $1 million, but if you do that, you had better figure out how you're going to go out and explain this to people.
That's what the FAC will have to look at on an annualized basis based upon the economic performance of the city and the current risks.
Fiscally, I don't agree with you. I mean, I agree with you, but politically, I don't, in the sense,
Well,
yeah.
I'm not looking at it politically, I'm looking at it from
Right.
a risk perspective and what the economic reality looks like.
There's going to be a certain percentage of people. So, I mean, I like 750 better conceptually. I'll say that. But I also believe that while the group that wants, 2 million plus, first of all, I think they're wrong about that as a priority. But regardless of what I think, we do need them to at least not oppose this actively, right? Now, they might still oppose it,
Might?
right? We might do all this, give them $1 million, and then they still oppose it. There's a very real chance of
There's a
that.
certain percentage of
You know,
people, which is their
they're-
right,
yeah.
that oppose any tax.
Sure.
And I'd say generally, that group is made up of those people.
Right.
So
Some percentage of them will
some
go
percentage of
on
them are not going to
anything.
support any, well, where was it? We had
Right.
that polled. That was actually kind of a large number. It
Right.
was like 20% said
Right.
nothing.
Right.
21% said, I support none. I don't know. You guys pay, I hear what you're saying about the politics of it. I think, yeah. I think that here, okay, I'm going to make my last reasoning in my mind is that PF, the noise was around the no on PF and preserve PVE group. But I think that PF failed more largely because the number was so big and people were like, what? No, it's too big. And we got caught also in just a bad economy and a bad, economic, governmental economic time, turmoil in the world, bad economy, number was way too big. And people were like, no, I can't. I actually had Carrie send out that article from the Cal Matters guys that says people are voting against things that increase expenses to their household. So to me, it's got to be locked down. It's got to be locked down. And I think that your average person who says, oh my gosh, okay, well, at least it's not triple. Now it's only a little less than double. Are going to say, wait, what's this $1 million here? And to David's point, like, no, I don't have a pension. Why am I paying for that? I mean, I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. It's just how people think.
Well, the other thing about the PF group that I listened to was face-to-face, was they not only want us to pay down the pension, but they felt that PF didn't have any teeth in it, didn't have any earmarks around the dollars. They didn't believe that we were going to do it. And for whatever reason, we haven't done it. We did part of it to date, but they don't believe that we did it, and they don't believe we were going to do it. So, again, 2.3 was the number they wanted, and they wanted us to prove that we were going to pay down the pension for their coalition. And we're not going to get the votes, in my opinion, if we don't bring them along.
So to that point, actually,
The swing, so that should pick.
He hit on one other thing that we've possibly forgotten about that might be necessary to get this across the finish line, which is these 40 reforms. And I think, I'll say this. Most of the 40 things, in reading through the list relatively quickly, were generally not objectionable to me, and some of them were quite good. There were a few that I have questions about. Is there some way to embody that in some additional language around fiscal accountability or something to that effect, that we will commit, to using the FAC to explore additional, revenue, cost reduction, and other fiscal responsibility
That's not
measures?
the FAC job. That's his job and his team. And no.
Well, I would say...
Thank you for the list. Thank you for the 28-page list of suggestions, and we'll
I think
definitely go
we
through
can, as an agenda item tonight, before we leave, is say, we're going to put that on an agenda. It's in the record. We're going to work on it through the FAC, but I wouldn't make it part of this.
I don't know how you could tie it to the funding.
Yeah, I mean, we have a special tax that money.
I've not heard that they want it tied directly to the measure. They want to be well received rather than pointed at and called those people. Number one. Number two, they want us to go through it and say, yes, we've reviewed them all. We think out of the X number that have been proposed, a few of these things make sense. We appreciate your input. They want to see that not all revenue going forward is going to come from parcel taxes in the future. It's why they're trying to drive down debt. It's why they want to see infrastructure as, some of it is one-time replacement expense, right? So no to including it in the measure, but also no to just shoving it off and saying, thanks for the suggestion, see you later.
No, I liked your idea. That's
Sure.
bring
Add it as an
bring it
agenda
as an
item.
agenda
Okay.
item that
Yeah.
says, hey, let's look at this and see.
If I can add to that, I have sat down with the author of the document. George and I sat down for about an hour and a half and went through each one. To the mayor's point, there were some items in there that I think were more of a clarification item. An example of that was that we were double paying for dispatch services with LA County Fire, which is required in our contract. Just to be clear, when a 911 call is made within the city, it goes to our PD dispatch center. If it's a medical or EMS, fire or EMS type emergency, that is transferred to LA County Fire, which then dispatches their engines and whatever. We don't dispatch to fire, period. We will, depending on the severity of the call, get our police officers rolling as well. We've demonstrated that. So I think something like that, can be dealt with as first a city council agenda item, and then followed up by, and I think it makes sense to refer that to the FAC. There are some accounting strategies that were in there that go above me. And I think, for example, another one that we've demonstrated tonight multiple times, use of AI. So anyways, I think that is a good future agenda item. I'd like to have an opportunity to spend some time with the document and kind of, dispels maybe some misunderstood, and then identify ones that warrant, further analysis and study. That,
just that it's looked at. I think that would be.
I think it's worthwhile.
It's probably good stuff as well.
And what I know is it's not written by one person. It's a coalition of people that have brought in ideas. And so, we definitely would like to. I think the priority that's been for the last 3 weeks is right now.
Yeah. I just didn't want to leave it on the cutting room floor.
I appreciate it. I think that was really.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So.
All right, so what are we doing?
I don't like being the swing vote on this. I really don't. I'll say this. I think this is one of those moments where trying to get 5 votes would be the ideal. And if there's some number, whether it's 750 or 850 or 950 or $1 million, where we could say we don't like it, we feel like we're allocating risk in the wrong way, but we also need to get to 66%. I think that would be the best message for the community. I've said this several times, even just tonight. I personally don't think that the pension is the biggest single risk that outweighs all the other items combined, so to speak. But I think there's a pretty big group of people in our community who do feel that way. And we need them to get to 66%. I am struck repeatedly by these charts that we see that show, to Ms. Losey's points, that this thing extinguishes itself in the 2030s if CalPERS can even be half competent, right? And so to me, that is a really strong piece of evidence that it's not our biggest problem. It's a problem, and $2 million a year is not a joke. But it's not it's not the single thing that's, the only issue, let's say. But
Well, the other
again,
thing
we
about going
need
with
to get-
750 is that I think that is psychologically, the people who are like, no, I'm not taxing myself to pay this.
it's a middle ground.
They're like, okay, that number could be way bigger and way more awful. The flip is that the people that want it to be a bigger number are not getting as big a number, but this is a 6-year thing.
Right.
This
It's
is
not
not a
forever.
12-year time
Right,
horizon that
right.
we're gonna,
That's a good point, too.
This is a 6 years is gonna go like that, and,
I mean, if I was really hoping that the survey would show that there was support for something closer to 10 million. And I think if we had seen support for something closer to 10, it would be a lot easier to say $1 million, even $1.5 million goes to pensions.
For sure.
You knock this thing out.
For sure.
You hit it hard.
if you're trying to hit the
But
bare minimum
if
of what you can pass,
we're
you
staying
can't put a big number
alive.
out there.
We're staying,
So we're not going to get to 5-0. Somebody make a motion.
I'll make a motion that the number is 8.7 with $1 million pension pay down.
I'll second that motion.
You need a roll call.
Roll call vote. Oh, she's right in the minutes.
McGowan?
Abstain.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Lozey?
No,
Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro?
I'll say no.
Mayor Kemp's.
Yes.
Motion fails.
I'll
Next
propose a motion that we have a tax measure with a base amount of 8.7 million to be dedicated to the Palos Verdes Estates law enforcement, with a $750,000 annual carve-out to CalPERS for the pension obligation.
I'll second that. Can we have a roll call vote?
She's typing it.
Sorry.
Councilmember McGowan?
Abstain.
Councilmember Quinn?
No.
Councilmember Lozey?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Kemp's?
Nope.
Okay.
Motion fails.
There you go. Well, do we ponder and come back? You can write everything else except for that, right?
No, I think we should figure out a number tonight. I mean, we've,
$9 million tax, $1 million pension.
does the psychological change?
That doesn't
Yeah,
get to two-thirds,
that
Michael. I
probably
really,
doesn't
I
get to
appreciate the suggestion. I just don't think that gets to two-thirds.
Yeah. I'm willing to vote for $1 million. I think it's unfortunate if we end up with a 3-2, but we have to move this forward. We have to fund our police. We have to have some minimal amount of money left over to keep the rest of the city running.
To make a new motion?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go again at $1 million, I'll vote for it, is my point.
So Craig, remake the motion.
Go again.
Another motion.
All right, deja vu. I'll make a motion for 8.7 with $1 million pay down for pension.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Did Michael second?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Michael, you want to second that?
I'll second that.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember McGowan?
Abstain.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Lozey?
We tried.
Thinking. I'm sorry, no.
Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro?
Yes.
Mayor Kemp's?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And I think we have consensus on the other items, so we'll bring back a measure.
I think you can go through the recording and
Yeah.
we'll
I have the
incorporate
notes.
that into the motion.
Karen and I both have the notes on the other
Yeah.
items. That was the last one.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. All right. Well,
Can I take, I thank you all for that. That was an interesting exercise, tough exercise. One item took close to 4 hours. I will add, for staff and all of us, I think that the main goal is to get this passed and to, because the alternative is, you can't even contemplate it. You can't even contemplate it. So, I hope we all can move forward. Everybody from all sides can get behind this. This is truly is the future of the city. So, with that, I'm glad to be taking the next step. Thank you.
I think that we should formally, for future tentative agenda items, let's just do a roll call vote on the consideration of the document of reforms.
Pardon me?
I think we had consensus on that.
No, but I'd like to formalize it. We're dealing with formal people.
To bring back an item to consider
Yeah.
those 40 items.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to do that.
Can you,
I'll second it.
maybe that be bifurcated so it doesn't all 40 come at once? Maybe you take
Sure.
half a dozen at a time or something of that
Leave it
nature?
at staff's discretion if it can be.
Yeah,
broken
to
apart.
begin.
Oh, wait a minute. Is the question bring it to us Or is the question asking the FAC to take time in a meeting or two to go through them, review them, and make recommendations to us?
Bring it to us.
The latter.
I think it's,
No, not the latter. No,
Yeah,
it's an agenda item, a city council agenda item to go through the list.
Yeah, because we can't set directly for the FAC. That's not an agenda item for us today anyway, so it'd have to come back to the council to, if you want to.
yeah, I would say the motion is to bring the list to the council as an agenda item for us to review and consider, and then we can take some future action on
Yeah,
it.
we can
On the
decide
FAC.
where, we can
Yeah.
decide which way we want to point things.
Right. We might peel off 10 that we think are most important, or
Yeah.
the whole thing, or what.
So staff doesn't have to bring a solution to all of them, to
No.
bring the list of them?
Staff
have a
doesn't have to
discussion,
bring a
and give
solution on
direction to
any
staff.
of them.
I would only add that I'll probably put some staff comments or clarifications on
Yeah.
our level of how we see a few things, like some of the examples that were shared
Yeah.
tonight.
I like David's
Yeah.
point. I don't want to have a 5-hour meeting. I mean, you got to break it apart if it gets too
Yeah,
much.
we'll leave it to staff's discussion to do it in a format that's practical.
That doesn't blow all your brain cells.
Yeah, right.
Good.
At the same, in one sitting.
Okay. So I'll make that motion. Have a second?
The motion to read the
second.
40 items
Yeah, I seconded it already, but yes.
in a format and at a time that, in staff's discretion.
Yeah.
Like September.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember McGowan?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Lozey?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro?
Yes.
Mayor Kemp's?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, well, I think that brings us to adjournment.
I do want to thank Mayor Kemp's again for giving up his vacation in the lovely land of Hawaii for being here tonight. So,
You're welcome. We're glad I was here. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to the staff for getting us through all this and getting us to this point. And hopefully we will be successful over the next several months. All right, thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
Derek.
Yeah, I got a fun one, huh?